Terrific. Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to call our regular meeting of our Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, November 7th, 2022 at 6:31 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm the chair of our Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission. Other members of the commission who are with us here tonight are Yoni Zamir, Kathy Hunter, Jeff Kennedy, and Chadi Nujim. We may have others join during the course of the evening, but we do have enough for a quorum. Thank you to Chris Sullivan, our Town Land Use Analyst and Zoning Enforcement Officer, for all your support, as always. It's also nice to see all of you in person. Our agenda has been available on the town website, as are the materials in support of the public hearing that we're going to hold tonight. And our first public hearing is a continuation of the public hearing on the application of Luciani Properties LLC for a special exception permit per section 3.3N of our zoning regulations for the excavation, removal, filling, grading, and other things to construct two single-family residences at 110 Luciani Road. We then have quite a bit of new business tonight, two different subdivision applications, one at 9 Manila Avenue and another one at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. Then we have a additionally full agenda of our own business on our cleanup of our zoning regulations, action perhaps on cannabis regulations, and then our traditional reports of the Planning Committee of SCROG, the Housing Committee, and other items. So let's now begin with our continued public hearing for Luciani Properties LLC for 110 Luciani Road. Is our applicant here? Yes. Would you like to come up to the microphone and state your name for the record? Chris, anything else? Perhaps I might ask you to sort of explain some of the new things that we have received. I believe, Chris, these are items we're receiving just this evening.
They're getting entered into your hearing record this evening. Two things that the applicant hasn't submitted are the comments from the Valley Council of Governments and also from the South Central Regional Council of Governments.
Those are on the website?
No, I'm sorry. Those were for 356, so cancel that. Too many things on your plate.
There are quite a few things. I think there were, though, comments on this one, or no?
You have a comment from a neighbor, which I distributed to you earlier this evening.
No, that's for 356.
That's for 356. So, no, you don't have any written comments, but you do have revised plans that were submitted. Then the initial revised plans that were submitted were just resubmitted this evening and bear the signature of an engineer, which was one of the things that had been mentioned by your consulting engineer. I should note that Jim Preedy is here. He does have a time frame, so if you can be mindful of the fact that he needs to also leave,
Sure.
that would be
Okay.
good.
So back to our applicant. Could you just state your name for the record, introduce yourself again? And
Darius Iwaskowitz, a rep for 110 Luciani Road.
thank you. Please, if you could just walk us through what has changed since we've last seen you.
We responded to the last comments. The sediment trap was added back. By accident, they understood that he wanted it taken out, but in actuality, it had to be moved, and so it was placed back on the property with a detail. The number two is just a note of the grade of the driveway, which is within zoning regulations. The rock, we submitted prior geologist notes stating that the rock slope is stable, and we have no problem of having it tested after the work is done, but no work has been done there since Vizio was there. We also had a arborist statement, same thing, saying that the trees were stable. I don't believe that the trees are really in the zoning board's privy. As you know, I drive around town, I see leaning trees and ash beetles eating everybody's trees. As a homeowner and a builder, you know, we have to maintain safety on our properties at all times for, you know, just doing business. And so we would remove any trees that would be unstable or ash beetle infested. But we have no problem of, at the end of construction, having an arborist come out if that would be a requirement, but again, I don't believe that that would be something that the board can do, but again, we're not opposed to it. And the plans are stamped by a licensed civil engineer as supposed to be, and I believe we meet all zoning requirements at this time.
So I'm happy to open up to our commission for questions of the applicant. I just want to make sure I'm understanding the things that were submitted. I'll start with the geotechnical analysis. So this is dated December 1, 2015. Well, the analysis is dated November 11th, 2015. It was received by the town of Woodbridge on December 1, 2015. I guess my question is, this was a geotechnical analysis. Was this done before or after, I guess, the prior owner or Vizzo was doing their
It was
work?
done since he was trying to renew his application, and so no work has been done since this report came out. So nobody has done any work on the site, because he was denied his, I think he was going for a blasting permit, or I don't know what, but he was denied. But this report was going forward in that attempt to try to get the work there, and then it states that if any work was done, they would, again, test after.
This geotechnical report doesn't say that. It says, it's just one line.
It says it's stable indefinitely. I think indefinitely means
Right, but you
until
were,
somebody touches it.
no, you were saying that there was an additional, they would do additional
Well, there was
testing
other,
afterwards.
I mean, if you looked at the whole, but that's not in your privy. But
No,
again,
we only have the things that are in front of us.
yeah, so, again, nobody has touched it since this.
So all of that excavation work done by Vizzo was done before,
Yeah, he had
Yeah,
an original permit, I believe, and then somehow it expired, and he had to come in again, and then he just gave up and sold the property.
and I guess, and what time was he doing, or what date range was he doing that excavation work?
I don't know. It was prior, you know, let me see if I can find when it was approved. I have it. Building permit. I don't seem to have it in front of me. I don't know if Christine knows or.
I'd have to go downstairs and look at the old file.
And this was submitted to you, to us, correct? This.
Yeah, because, I mean, our engineer has looked at it, and he knows at the end of the job, he will come out and
So
certify the
you're
work.
submitting the addendum, but not the actual geotechnical analysis?
Well, again, nobody has touched a rock. This is a geotechnical guy that said if nobody touches it, there's no problem with it. So I don't see the need of spending the money. And again, at the end, you know, we will have to, as the as-built will require, that, you know, a licensed engineer to sign off on it, so.
So just because there's no plan to disturb it?
Yeah, we're gonna disturb it per the zoning regulations to put the houses where they have to go. That's why we're here for the special permit of mass excavation.
I'm just looking at the comments from our engineering firm, and it says that this requires the seal of a professional civil engineer.
And we do, we have it, if you look.
Professional civil engineer?
Yeah, there's a surveyor and a civil engineer. It's the stamp on the corner there with the blue signature. If you look at your big map,
Is it the top, towards the top of that sheet?
right there.
Okay, Dave Nafis.
Okay.
So I am just trying to understand the timeline of this property, and just to be helpful, last time you were here, which is now 2 months ago, because we missed last month, there was this attempt to do some excavation with equipment that was inadequate for the job, didn't quite get it done right. I just wanted to understand and make sure I'm clear that that happened before this one-line statement of the geotechnical engineer. I would have a similar question about the tree service report, which also says it's from January 4th, or January of 2016.
Again, the trees, nobody's been there, nobody's done anything. We cut some trees to clean the property. And again, I think it's more important that, I believe as his other permit was granted, is at the end of construction, that an arborist comes. I don't have a problem, but again, I don't believe that the zoning board controls to tell us to get an arborist. I think that's a common sense thing, that any builder, homeowner has to make sure that trees don't fall and potentially hurt somebody.
Right, which, I agree that's common sense, but I'm concerned about the fact that this, last time an arborist has looked at your trees is from over 6.
But again, I
To
don't
7
believe,
years ago.
I don't believe even though they did it, that this board has the right to say that we have to do that.
Okay, we had this discussion last time we were here about the.
And
what
the safety
section
issue
of the
that,
stat-
the safety issue that you're,
I would actually appreciate being able to get a full sentence out. It's a common courtesy. I do wait to let you continue, have your sentences. In our special permit, exception permits, the thresholds that we're looking at, the health, safety, and welfare of the public in general, the immediate neighborhood, compliance with our plan of conservation development, the location survive. This is all, I'm sorry, this section 6.3C of our regulations. So we are reviewing this request for an excavation permit under those things, and the first thing is about health, safety, and welfare of this area. So we shouldn't be worried at all about the trees.
well, in the whole time that this lot has existed, there has not been one incident of public safety at that location. I believe if there was a dam or a power line that our activity would undermine and create a general public hazard, the zoning board would be able to say that. And again, I'm conceding if it's a subject to approval, that at the end of the work, when it's important, after anything was disturbed, an arborist can come and check and, make the board happy. I'm not opposed to that. But to do it prior and after, it doesn't make sense. And we do have reports here of people that were out to the site that already said it's safe. And again, we could go to the police department, the fire department, the EMT department, and there's not been an incident at the site.
I just note that these are both, 6 to 7 years old, and they were done in anticipation of that application and being presented to our board at that time. And you seem to not want to do that now. We'll ask our engineer his views on this as well. Other members of the commission with questions on the things that are in front of us?
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate then to ask them about the 5 things that I know our engineer is here? So, but would it, for example, number 1, the sediment trap has been removed, and I see that on your note, or from your, from the letter from Paul Stowell, it states that the temporary sediment traps, each property, added temporary sediment traps. The comment was that they were removed, but then it also stated that there was an ask for explanation for how the runoff during construction would be directed into it and how it's going to function. So is that something you've explained in the application? Did we go over that
I
already?
believe there's a
Forgive
note
me.
there. There's a note with the sediment trap.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Can you please direct us to it so we can read it?
Well, if your engineer, I think he's the one that has to look at it, but.
I'm capable of reading too.
No, I know, but it's an engineering. Let's see. Erosion control. I think under erosion control, you read that section. That addresses all of those temporary issues with runoff.
And is there an explicit explanation on?
I think
the-
it says right there, the square says number 2 next to 13. Notes providing sedimation controls has been added,
So,
but that whole section deals with it.
Good.
again, the request was a detail or explanation of how the runoff was gonna be directed into the sediment trap that was gonna function. Could you just point us to where you did that?
Well, I believe when we excavate, we direct the water to the sediment traps, right? With hay bales, silt fences, right?
I
So-
saw that hay bales and silt fences are protecting the existing catch basins, which is, I guess, our stormwater.
Yeah, but so when we're working on a site like this, that is a lot of fill, as we work, we direct everything to the sediment traps to catch the water. We might even make some swales to keep the water, and then if it overflows, we direct it to the sediment traps. So that's part of the construction. So the sediment trap has to be there so we could direct the water during construction. And all these other elements are there in case big rain comes and overflows, it protects and directs the water to the sediment traps and protects the existing storm sewer that's there. But during construction, we direct it when we're digging. So I don't know what, you can't draw that on the map, because right now, if you looked at existing contour, it's like this room, it's a hill.
And your position is that explanation that you just gave us is captured in this erosion code?
Yeah, it exists, right? That exists, and we have to direct it to that location. Just like the stockpiles, temporary, we gotta move it. But those are like depressions where we direct the water while we're working, so it doesn't go right to the road. So I don't know how to else explain it.
Yoni, did you have other things that you wanted to walk through?
So driveway, number 2 on that list was driveway slope on lot 15 was revised. Do you have a comment on that at all?
I think if you ask your engineer, I think he just was pointing it out, but I believe we're allowed to go to 15% with a paved driveway. But again, if he was here, we could get his.
We'll call him up
Yeah.
afterwards.
And then number 3, the recommendation regarding a review of the rock cut by a geotechnical engineer has not been addressed, but a 4-foot high permanent safety fence has been added to the top of the rock cut.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that whoever buys the property, or if we keep it, that there's a fence, a permanent fence that's going to stay up there, not just a temporary construction fence. And this will help, animals, or even if a person was up there and stumbled, to keep them away from the cut. It's a safety measure.
That's what the 4-foot fence is?
Yeah, but a permanent.
Uh-huh,
So that was added.
gotcha. Yeah, I think that covers it on our Jim Peretti, October 31st letter, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, we can ask him.
Other questions for the applicant on the materials that have been presented to us?
I mean, I'm just also concerned that the date of the letter on the arborist is outdated. It is 7 years ago, and trees aren't stagnant things. They grow and they change and they evolve. So I do think that this needs to be up to date. It has to be a current review.
Other questions for our applicant? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Waskowitz. If you could stay in case we were going to bring up our consulting engineer, and if we have follow-up questions for you after our consulting engineer, we might bring you back up.
That's not a problem. So that'll be at the end of the other hearings, or?
No, just
Oh, okay, no problem.
when we're done, it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes.
All right.
Before we get to the public hearing,
All right, any other questions?
not right now.
All right.
We might have more once our consulting engineer comes up.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Preddy, if you could come up and join us. And if you could state your name for the record and the role that you are play for the town in this matter.
Sure. Jim Preddy, principal with Criscolo Engineering at 420 East Main Street in Branford. I review permits for, mostly for wetlands, but also for planning and zoning on an as-needed basis. I will say the question about the sediment trap, the plans that you have now, I don't believe I've seen. I think these were the ones that you received today, correct?
Yes, these
Christine?
are the ones we received. They're dated today, 11/7/22.
So I can't, as far as the details of the sediment, I don't know what, what's in the narrative or what's in the actual detail. So I can't really comment on that. The driveway slope, I just kind of pointing it out, that it's, almost 14% from the edge of the road to the garage slab. I don't know that there's room for, I'll say an approach area, it's 14% right to the edge of the pavement. And no, without a flat spot in front of the garage door or at the bottom of the driveway. So it's just more of an observation, whether that's a concern for you folks or not. The geotechnical engineer, the reason I even brought that up is because, I think I've explained this at the last meeting, there are certain, and I've seen this, there are certain types of rock that experience issues with pieces popping off when you go through freeze-thaw cycles. In fact, there's a fairly large rock cut right near exit 53 in Branford, where there was a Starbucks, so they had to put chain link fence over the rock because the rocks kept falling down up against the back of the building. I don't know that this is that kind of rock. It could be stable. It could be trap rock. I don't know. The point of the comment was that somebody else needs to make that determination. Is it going to be a hazard going in the future for whoever lives there? The 4-foot fence was wonderful. I think that, that's a necessity. You're going to have a pretty steep cut there to keep people and animals from getting too close to the edge. The arborist, I would agree with the applicant's assessment that really could be done after the fact, maybe between the time the mass excavation is done and the houses are built. I don't know where exactly the top of the cut will end up in reality in the field, and the closeness of any mature trees to the edge of that cut could be examined at that point and determine if there's an issue. There may not be. There may be. When you get done with the cut, it could be nothing close enough. That's a concern. But again, not knowing anything about the rock, I had to bring up the point. Going back to the sediment trap without seeing the details or the narrative, he is correct about things need to morph in the field as the construction progresses. So there needs to be some flexibility in that. The way it was on the plans that I saw, there was no indication at all of how any of the water was going to get directed into the sediment trap. That was the question that I had asked the first time.
So, thank you, Mr. Preddy. I just pulled out our, and Chris, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here. We had an original October 3rd, 2022 copy of the plans. I don't think we ever saw the interim, the October 30, or the mid-October version of the plans. I don't, well, I'll pause there. I'm not sure what we saw. Maybe we did get an October 3rd copy. And now we have an 11/7 copy. I just want to understand the sort of version control of the plans and sort of what, whether there was one before October 3rd.
So, looking at the revision dates on this plan, you had the original plan, and then you had a revision date of 9/18/2022, which would have been the one that you received at your meeting that Jim wouldn't, those were the ones that went back to Jim's original comments, and then you have the ones that are being received this evening,
Okay.
which are replying to the shorter list of comments that Jim had.
Gotcha. And so I think I have a copy that was received October 3rd, 2022. That would be it only has a revision, it only shows a 9/18/2022 in the sort of revisions list. My guess is that this is probably the one that our consultant reviewed if it was received in October and our consultant's report came back in October 31st.
Right, because the 11, today is the 7th, and the latest revision on these was the 5th, and I just got handed these this afternoon.
Okay. So I have the benefit of being able to put them both side by side and sort of see what's in this erosion control note section. It does, they look very similar. I've done an eyeball sort of red line between the two. So I don't think anything really changed. We can bring the applicant back up, other than the addition of a paragraph 13, which we can talk about, which only says, construction methods shall be in accordance with the provisions set forth in the guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control, parentheses 2002, by the State of Connecticut Council on Soil and Water Conservation. With that one paragraph, and maybe Chris can sort of hand you that, if that is the only change made to this section, does that actually address what you would have hoped for? This is the place that has, on my copy, a green box too, associated with it.
I guess it does give you something to fall back on if you're, if Christine or someone from the town goes out there and sees something that doesn't look correct, you have something to fall back on and say, does it meet this or not?
But I guess my more specific question, is that responsive to your request for the explanation in detail how the runoff is going to be directed into the sediment traps and how it's going to function? That to me is just a reference to a general guideline from 2002.
No, I'm just looking at this now, but there doesn't seem to be any indication of how the water's gonna get into these traps. But again, it would probably have to change as the construction progressed regardless. But at least initially, there's not any indication of how the water's gonna get in there.
Even though there's that, you see that one, of the changes, right, that are in green, you see that one temporary sediment trap's been added.
I do. There's one on each lot now
Right.
instead of one in the middle.
Right. I guess the question I'm wondering is, coming at this from my perspective, is this what we're supposed to see on a plan like this in order to give it approval? I mean, I'm not hearing from you either way as to whether or not this be sufficient. I grant you haven't had a chance to really thoroughly review it, but.
Not really a detail specific for that. typically you'd have some sort of indication on a plan of where soil might go, at least initially. And then the detail of the sediment trap itself, how it's gonna function. You have some sort of way for the water to pass through it, slow it down. You're trying to remove sediments from the water before it gets out into the road and into the road drainage system. You know, you're trying to protect the town drainage system basically, or a wetland if that's the case, or whatever downstream really.
In these plans, you don't see that
No,
described?
I mean, there's some details on here, but not specific to,
I see on the second page, there's that sediment and erosion control details
yeah, that's,
box.
for catch basin protection, which does apply here. You know, there's just some other kind of standard details for check dams and silt fence installation, all good details, just not specific to a sediment trap.
We'll bring you up afterwards. Yeah, sure, go ahead. You need to be able to think closer to the mic.
Sorry. The land is sloping from top right corner down to the lower left. So the sediment trap number 16 would essentially miss 3/4 of the property.
That's what I'm seeing too, yes.
So, I feel this is somewhat unfair. We're obviously seeing this for the first time. We're not engineers. You have not seen the work, sort of asking you on the fly to start giving your
Right.
opinions.
I mean, usually the sediment trap would be at the lower end of the site, so you're collecting as much of the site as you can before the water actually leaves the site.
So I'm more generally sort of expressing a frustration to have a few things that we get tonight that we, are now having to review on the fly and not having the benefit of your expertise in how to read this. Does this have all the elements that you would want to see of a plan of this type, considering the type of excavation work that is happening in this area surrounded by a rock cliff? You've already seemed to have suggested that having a better understanding of what actual, but I'll phrase it a different way. Does that one line, have you seen the one-line report from 2015 about from the Dell Consultants Geotechnical?
I did not, but if it indicates that, again, in the interim between the mass excavation and the houses being built, that a geotechnical engineer is gonna review it, then I think that covers my question.
No, and Chris, can you hand him a copy of it? It has one line that says, with respect to the question of length of time, the rock slope will remain stable.
This just came in this afternoon.
It is our opinion that it should remain stable indefinitely unless it is disturbed.
Okay, well, they are obviously disturbing it, so,
And does this have any indication of the type of rock that it is?
no.
Does it have a report attached to it that explains how this conclusion was reached?
This does not, although I suspect that they probably were on site back in 2015. There may be more that we're not seeing here, but I don't know.
Right, do we have that currently in front of us now?
No.
Other questions? Commissioner?
And just to be clear, are you at all comfortable expressing a professional opinion as to whether or not this letter alone that you're looking at is sufficient?
I don't disagree with this letter,
Right.
but the fact of the matter is they are going to disturb it. This says if it's not disturbed, it's okay.
Right.
But they're gonna cut quite a bit of it out.
Right.
Um,
That's what's a little confusing me as well.
But would one need to know the type of rock before making that assessment?
I think that, again, there's gonna be an interim between when the rock is finished being cut and the house construction.
In other words, you said obviously there's gonna be disruption of the surface and the rock. Should that assessment be made before that disruption is undertaken?
Again, I don't really know what the rock's like there, but
Oh, that's
I
my
don't
point.
think that, I mean, if they were, I would like to see if there was anything else that they had written back in 2015, any other concerns, but, I don't think that this specifically prevents anything from happening on the site. They're just saying that if you leave it alone, it's stable,
But they're not leaving it alone. And so
but they're not
that's-
leaving it alone, so this particular letter doesn't say anything about what's
No,
going to be
I
like
understand what
after.
that letter says.
Yeah.
What I'm asking is, would it be your recommendation that a geotechnical assessment be made with respect to the type of rock before there's any disturbance? It seems logical that if that opinion was that unless disturbed, it would remain stable indefinitely, that we would want to know the type of rock before disturbing it. Because then it'll be too late, right?
I do think that there's a value in determining the soundness of the rock or the stability, for lack of better terms, the stability of the rock there. Yeah. And again, I'm not the geotechnical engineer.
understand that.
I don't know if they could do it just by a visual inspection and just say, there's probably pieces of it laying around, say, okay, this is what kind of rock it is. I don't know that it needs to get overly complicated initially, but whether or not somebody makes that determination beforehand, I certainly think that somebody needs to look at it once it's cut and see if something else needs to happen there.
I have a question for you. So just on the plans, this is a higher level view. So you have these parcels and they're labeled 17, 12, 13, 14, 18, and they're developed. There's existing houses on those and those running. So in your view, if there were, for example, a terrible rainstorm of like 2 or 3 inches of rain during the excavation, can you tell from these plans, or do you have an opinion if these areas would flood or not on the existing parcels that we have here?
Without seeing the topography of the other lots, hard for me to say. It does look like it's all draining to Luciani Road, though, the lot now. There is a little section of this that could possibly drain over to like 13 and 14, if not controlled. But you run silt fence along that side and there are ways to control it. And it's just a little piece of the drainage area that is this property. But most of it's running to the road. And looks like it will continue to run to the road by the way they're cutting it.
Thank you.
Other questions for our consulting engineer? And what is your timing? Do you have, because we're gonna bring the applicant back up, do you,
I could stay for a few more minutes.
a few more minutes, it would be appreciated. So if we can switch seats or, is it okay?
You can just sit right there.
Yeah.
So Rob, another question on the property line. So the property
Sure.
line is the.
Chad, I think you have to move that closer to you.
Sorry, I keep forgetting that. So the property line is what's in red or orange, whatever that color is. What is going on, just having a difficult time understanding how the cul-de-sac is depicted here. What's going on between what is depicted as the cul-de-sac, which I'm guessing is the black line, and the distance from that to the property line?
I didn't follow the question, I didn't understand that.
So if you follow the cul-de-sac line, which I'm guessing is the black line,
Yes,
kind of
that's
has
the,
a carve
black
out.
is the edge of the pavement, I believe.
Okay, so between that and the orange property line, what is that property that's kind of circular in shape?
Well, that's the property that's actually owned by the town. That's part of the right-of-way for the road.
Oh, that's right away there, okay.
I think we talked about this in the previous meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, I believe, and to the applicant, part of your application is that the town has no current plans for the finishing of that circle, correct?
I think the board has received a letter from the town attorney stating that we have the right to access the property through the right-of-way. I think there should be in your files there somewhere.
Yeah.
And that was addressed from the original comments.
Correct.
So, I have a question back on this section on erosion control notes, and my quick sort of check between the two. First of all, I also noticed now that I've read them closely, there's a few references to the town of Milford in this, which,
Well, it must be a typo.
well, it raises a question for me. Were these copied and from
They
some?
typical.
I'd really
I thought
love
you
to-
wanted me to answer you, sorry.
I'd really love to just finish. So were they copied from another sort of site plan development? Because to me, it looks a lot like boilerplate and isn't specifically responsive, including that one paragraph 13. So is that paragraph 13 the only change that was made to this section in response to our town engineer?
Well, they're all general boilerplate notes because it's all governed by the same things that they mentioned. And so this site is a very sloped site. As we break the rock, right, there'll be piles of rock which will act as a filter, right? And as the engineer knows, is we have to, if you went to the site now, there's a little area where he already created a little flat area that's kind of depressed. The water that currently is coming on the site is coming from above the hill. We had this conversation, it goes to the neighbor's property, the neighbor diverted to us. We had all the rainstorms that we just had. There was no issues of water coming from our properties flooding anybody. But there is a heavy amount of water that runs from up the other properties to the side of our property, which drains into the town system. So during the course of construction, you will see, and I think the engineer could understand, that you will direct the water to where you can, because right now there's nowhere to put it. So as you work, you will pile the rock, which will be rock, which would filter any water that would kind of get over whatever depression we make as a sediment control. And that sediment control will move with the project. So if we don't do a good job, Christine will come out, or at first the neighbors will all call saying, oh, look what's going on. So we have to take control the best that we can. You know, we can't control when 5 inches come in half an hour. But we'll do our best so the water will filter through the rock and into the sediment. And then when it overflows, the hay bales will take any other, right? And a sediment trap would also probably be in the catch basin. So if we don't do a good job, the town shuts us down, right? But there's no way to draw a picture of how the water is gonna be directed. So you use these general boilerplate answers, which mean that if you don't, the town's gonna shut you down, right? And same thing, the safety fence has to be up. You could see there's a silt fence. It's all kind of these dots and everything, they all mean something different, right? So if we don't do a good job doing controls as we go, we would wash out the road, right? But we even put hay bales out there right now, right? And we did have a lot of rain. I didn't hear any complaints from anybody about wood chips or anything that we did on the site affecting the area, because we did put bales around the drain already, you know, just to be proactive.
And I guess my narrower question was really in response to our town engineer that asked in the comment number 1 for the detail and explanation how runoff is going to be handled during construction, directing it into the sediment traps. Your response, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've added this paragraph 13 to the erosion control notes. What other things are specifically responsive to that request of the town engineer, that first request?
But I believe my answer of our construction of digging trenches and placing material is gonna dictate, and as he had said, the sediment control is gonna have to move with the project, right? And if it doesn't, there's no way you're gonna control the water, right? So the statement is how do you know, is again, is on a heavy rain, if something goes into the road, Christine will come out and say, hey, where is your hay bale? Where is this? How come you didn't direct the water to the sediment trap, right? So there's no way to draw a picture of that. It would have to be like an animation, a movie. because it's gonna keep moving as the project progresses. And this is ledge, it's not mud, right? So rock is a natural filter, right?
So my interpretation of that is that your explanation here tonight on what you're gonna do and during construction and how the town will be able to enforce against it is how you're responding to number one on Mr. Preddy's list.
Yes, and I honestly, this is a typical plan, and I've never had these questions about it, because it's kind of a known, in construction, you have to do certain things. And the existing site, I don't know if you guys have been out to it, but it'd be helpful if you did, you could see what we're talking about. But also the purpose of the other engineer's report, he did shear the wall there. That wall has been sheared since 2015, and there has been no movement. And we have no problem of having an engineer come in after the work is done to verify that it's stable, right? And I'm not opposed to that.
But you are, just because you are opposed to having an engineer do that now before you start.
But that's why I presented the existing report. And
We've already
it's a
covered.
shear wall that was already done from 2015, and there has been no movement. I mean, you could see that. And our engineer has looked at it and says, yes, there's no issue here, and he does not see an issue as we shape it, and he will give a report to that effect, but there's no way to do that until the work is performed. If we go and we hit some kind of different material, right, we'd have to call the engineer and say, hey, look, this section here, it changed. But what we could see right now, it's a stable, solid rock that we believe we could shape.
And when you say your engineer, who is that person?
Excuse me?
Who is the engineer? You just said your engineer has told you something. That's not something we have a document related to.
No, but again, I'm not opposed to having the engineer, as your engineer proposed, is at the end, the engineer has to come out and give a report. I don't see the purpose of, we're excavating the area now, right? Which you already have a letter that was previously excavated, and we have to do a report again. I mean, to me, it's a report is necessary after the construction, just like the trees, right? After we disturb it, we have to make sure it's solid, right?
But that engineer would come out after you're gonna be doing more excavating.
Yeah,
Before you start physical construction of any homes, right?
We have to. That's the
Right.
whole reason we're here.
Right. So the intention though, is it part of your plan though, to then have the engineer come either way? I mean, not just you or whoever else is in charge of the site to eyeball it and say, well, it looks like we should bring the engineer out. Is the engineer planning, is that just part of your process?
I mean, when you build in construction, and, because we're liable for whatever we build. So, yeah, I mean, we could, it's something that we usually do at the end of the job, but
Again,
again,
once the homes are built.
yeah, as we're going.
In this instance, since it's a different geographical structure that's different in the rock, would you be okay with getting some additional reporting to move ahead with your application if we requested it? Would you be upset about that? Is it very expensive? Like, what if we ask you to do something like that? It's hard, it's not just a flat piece of land that, and there's a lot of people built up around it, and there's a road that can flood. And so we don't want to say that we're being difficult, but we just want to understand it a little better. I get your point that it's hard to do that because in your job, it's a real-time situation. So what happens is as you work the site, developments present themselves. But there must be some people who have a lot of experience that could maybe do a report, that could maybe say what they think about it.
We're currently doing a job in Fairfield. I mean, I have pictures. And on this job, the engineer doesn't come out until the end phase to certify the wall. I do not have, if you're saying I have to do this to be approved, I'll do it. But again, it still has to be done at the end of construction. So, I mean, again, I would rather be approved and spend money, but it just adds the construction costs keep adding up,
So, to be clear, the only reason I even raised the concern was because of how close the houses are to the rock cut. If this was out in the middle of the backyard somewhere, I wouldn't even brought it up probably. But maybe to settle concerns, you can make a condition that prior to the issuance of a building permit, you have the geotechnical engineer review the final cut for stability, and they can move on from there.
Bob, are the houses that are next to these properties, did they encounter the same issue? Do we know?
No,
Did they have, are they on the
they don't
same
have the slopes.
rock wall, rock?
No.
They don't have quite the same
Formation, whatever.
topography. Probably why this was left till the end, because it
Yeah.
was probably the most difficult area.
Questions for either our applicant or our engineer? And I remind our folks on the commission that this is your last chance to ask them questions before we go to our public comment session. And once we're in the work session, we cannot ask further questions of either the applicant or our town.
Could I ask Mr. Pruitt, based on what you heard him describe regarding the sediment trap, right? What I heard you say was it would be nice if the plans as revised had a bit more description, a bit more narrative, a bit more, diagram, et cetera, as you guys do in the engineering world regarding the sediment trap. His response, if I heard it correctly, and not putting words in your mouth, but his response essentially was, look, it's kind of a moving thing. I put that on the plans as revised in this particular spot, but I'm a professional. When I go out there to the site and I start working on it, the sediment trap's gonna go in some logical spots. He described some rain we've already had, et cetera. Are you satisfied with the explanation that he gave?
I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said, and it sounds like you'll probably do a good job. I was asked to review the plans, and that what he had described isn't actually on the plans. So I'm not disagreeing with his methodology, but just,
Is there a value to having it actually explained on the plans? Is that something that gives the town and our enforcement ability a stronger hook? Should it be on the plans?
I had asked for a detail of a sediment trap, which I don't believe is on even the ones submitted today. As far as it moving or swales, as long as they describe that somehow, it doesn't need to be depicted on the plan. But there needs to be some sort of narrative, say, that, this is, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z to protect the road and the town drainage system and the neighbors.
And would that typically be in these side, again, someone who doesn't live and breathe these plans?
Right.
If not on this, very large piece of paper, would it be an additional report or an
No.
company addendum?
It could be right on the plans, or I guess to, expedite this, it could be in a letter addendum kind of thing, but typically it would be right on the plans. You are correct, most of these notes are boilerplate. That is the nature of the beast. I mean, most of the plans you've probably got over the years have a lot of the same notes on it for erosion controls. But this is kind of a unique situation. I think there needs to be a little bit of a narrative included in the approval, so you can say, okay, you promised us this, and here it is, where is it?
And the sediment trap, we talked about, adjusting the site as you progress. Does the sediment trap itself move, or just the direction of flow
It would most likely have to move as things progress.
and you agree with that?
Only other comment, I'm not Toll Brothers. I'm not building 40 units that are gonna be $1 million and
Yeah.
say that I'm doing something good for the town. I can't spend that kind of money. We do a good job. We have no problem with a letter stating that we will move, even though to us it's common sense, especially on single-family homes. But we're happy to address those issues with letters or whatever it is to spell out even in this meeting. If we don't do it, there's your cop right there. She comes out, cease and desist, boom. No argument, there's no argument. When something fails and there's mud in the street, right, so I'm a little put back in that sense that this is supposed to be affordable housing, single-family homes. They're not gonna be in the millions of dollars.
So
We're trying to be honest but we're not to the capability of a $50 million project.
Yeah, and so we respect that, but to make sure that everything's done correctly, you might as well do it right from the get-go, right? So you don't have to move things.
Yes, but again, this is typical drawings for us. We understand in our profession what we have to do, otherwise, we get cease and, we don't, that's not our business.
So if the sediment trap stays where it is in this drawing,
I believe we said, and the engineer understands, it's gonna move. From day one, we're gonna have to dig a pit somewhere, right? And work our material. It's quite a bit of material that's gonna be hammered, and we're gonna make seams, and as you, like, if I broke this table up, water has plenty of places to go before it moves forward, right? And so it'll be an ongoing thing as the project progresses. And we could put that in writing, I mean, hay bales, I mean, whatever we have to do, and we're gonna be piling gravel, right? Which is a filter, and it'll be clean water.
So based on your opinion and experience, can you give people publicly a sense, even if it's not written down by an engineering firm, that these other areas around this property will not be flooded as a result of the excavation?
No,
I just
not by our
wonder what you would say.
Yeah, no, definitely, because as we're excavating, we control where the water goes. And even when we grade, we have to design to keep the water on our property, and then it goes to where it all goes, to the storm system. And so this property right now is solid ledge, so when it rains, the water just goes down, there's no controls. And there's no issues there right now.
And you're a home builder?
Yes, sir.
You're in construction. How long have you been doing that?
All my life. And in the 1950s, they didn't have the equipment we have today. That's why they left it. We're building a hospital where the setback is 6 feet to a shear wall, and there's nothing there. I got pictures, so technology has gone a long way. We're responsible legally for what we build, for the safety of our people on the job.
Any further questions for either the applicant or our technical consultant?
I just have a question for our technical consultant. In that you just received these plans tonight, I mean, is there a sense that you may need more time to review this, or do you feel that you've done adequately a review that suffices for tonight, or whether or not you might need some more time?
So my last letter was only a few items which we've kind of discussed quite a bit here tonight. Again, I don't know what else was added other than a couple of notes about the one note about erosion control guidelines and the sediment traps added back in. Is there anything else added to the plans since?
You made the comment about the slope, but we're allowed to go 15%. I think we addressed all the issues. We're not opposed to have an arborist if that's really important to you after, the work is done. Same thing with the engineer. If that's part of it, and if you want a letter stating what I said verbally, that the sediment control is gonna move and water is gonna be directed during the course of construction to them, I have no problem with that.
I think it's fair to have the geotechnical engineer and the arborist there between the rock cut and the home building process. And for what it's worth, I do think it's good to have a narrative of how they're gonna handle the runoff during construction, clarified for the record.
Any other questions from our commission members?
The removal of the rock, how does that occur?
We put a letter to you. It's gonna be trucked out, and the truck count is.
I'm sorry, how's it
with a
removed from
hammer.
the earth?
Excuse me?
How's it broken up?
It's a
Excavated.
big hammer. It's like a piston.
Okay, so you're not blasting, you're just,
No.
you're mechanically
Yes.
chipping away at it. And does that present any risk to the adjacent properties?
It's an accepted building practice that doesn't require any monitoring, whereas blasting would.
Okay. And the proximity from property 16 to the property 17 is no concern with that process?
No, we go right up to the property line, but we're really back in that corner, And I believe a lot of the excavation in that area has been done previously. But again, we could go right up to the property line with the hammer. It's not.
That's something we've seen before.
That's something we can talk about. Other questions for the applicant?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. So folks will give me just one moment to rearrange my papers, and we will have time now for, actually, I'll let everyone rearrange the papers for our audio folks in the back. I know that gets picked up. So we're now going to move to our public hearing portion of, our public comment portion of this public hearing. This section is for purposes of listening to your comments. You will each have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record, and I'll use my phone for timing purposes, I hope. Just as I know we've had folks give comments before during the original public hearing, the continuation last month. All of those public comments are part of our record and our decision-making process, and they are very much appreciated, as are any written comments and/or photos, which were, I think, submitted after our first hearing, if I'm remembering correcting, Christine?
Yes, they were.
Yeah, so there were already some written comments that were submitted to the town in the period of time since we've been continuing this public hearing. So as a reminder, your TPZ members will not be answering any questions you raise. This is really an opportunity just for you all to provide comments into the record. This is not going to be a back and forth between us. Also, as a friendly reminder, off-the-record communication with members of the commission regarding this application are prohibited. And I do ask that you keep your comments brief and focused on the special election permit, special exception permit, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition. Now, I know there's someone who had wanted to get home early. We would love to have you go first. But then otherwise, when you come up, we have a sign-up sheet there. Sign in, state your name for the record, and once you're done with all of that, I will start my timer clock. It will go off, I hope, maybe, but only after you've signed in. And I'll allow, when it goes off, I'll allow you to finish a thought, and but it's just trying to keep us on track tonight.
Okay, thank you. My name is Randolph Sakicki, and I've been in this neighborhood for 68 years, on and off. I know the layout of the woods. I built forts in those woods as a kid. I know the rock. I could tell you where each plant is. That's how much time I spent in this neighborhood, unfortunately. 3 minutes. So in 3 minutes, because I had about 6 hours worth, this is what I'm going to lay out. I'm a senior. I have health issues. There are a lot of seniors in this neighborhood. I believe this jackhammering, which isn't a hand jackhammer, we're talking about a big, huge machine. I think it's going to be, exploitation and a disruption of the residents, big time. I think it's going to be something that we could barely live with on a daily basis, and I don't know how long this project's going to go on here. I don't know the purpose of this project, if they're renting or if they're gonna try to sell these houses. That, to me, that's big. We have renters in the neighborhood, they've ruined the neighborhood. They've ruined our values. I've been trying to get out of this town for 6 years, and I'll be damned if I could break the chains. But as a person who's been there for 68 years, I think the amount of disruption, I think the fact that people are mostly elderly, I just think that's too much to ask of us. I have all kinds of information that I got off the internet that talks about, this business and what they do and so on. There's positive and there's negative, and you could go on for years. But I have to live there. And one of my neighbors is within as far as I'm concerned, a yardstick of this property that they're gonna be hammering on. And I just think it's an abomination. And that's how I see it, and that's how I feel toward it. Not toward any person, but this whole idea of building there. And no one could tell me that Shiki Luciani, he was a sharp shark. He would have built on that property if it was possible. Has nothing to do with equipment. He would have figured it out. We've been here before. We were here in 2015, I believe you said. I was here. I gave some legal argument then that I got from a lawyer, and we shut it down. But now here we are again with somebody new. I don't understand it. But I'm not going to put up with the noise. I'll be bothering the town hall, the police department, the fire department, whoever it is, every single day. I'm retired. I have a lot of time on my hands. Okay, guys? I'm bored as hell. So, you do what's right, but remember the people. People have lived there for years and years and years, and there's a bunch of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who would like to, feel free, and anyone,
Well, I'm his wife.
Um,
My name's Deborah.
if you could just sign in and we'll state your name for the record.
Okay, how do you get this pen open? Oh, it's one of those flip caps, okay. Okay, I have a question for you guys.
I'm sorry, can you state your name for the record? and-
Deborah Zakicki.
Thank you, and I'll start your timer.
I have a question for all of you. Have you been on Luciani Road? Have you physically looked at this area that he's wanting to build on? Question. When you stand in front of Robert Street and you look in the cul-de-sac, yes, there's rock, but above the rock, there's also tons of dirt, trees. Now, are we gonna be guaranteed that if you do get a heavy rainfall, or anything, such storms like the Sandy, that it's not gonna cause a landslide if it's not supported? Being they're gonna disturb the rock that's there. Because if you actually look, you got Peter's house, that lot, some more woods, another house, and a corner house. But when you look at it, you've got a hill, and it's trees and the rock. Is it gonna be guaranteed that there's not gonna be a damage if we have a heavy storm, like we did? Or the mud's gonna soften? Because if you look up now, with that lot being the way it is, you have the rock, you see trees, but then you have a house that's like right towards the edge of those trees. kinda. So it doesn't make sense with this building there. And this is just my opinion. You should physically go and take a look with your own eyes to see what's there. So you understand why the neighbors are concerned. You also got a house that has 3 very severe autistic kids. Do you not think that that hammerjack is gonna make them crazy? They're gonna be screaming and yelling because they ain't gonna be able to tolerate the noise. So these are a lot of things you need to look at and think about. And with heavy equipment coming in and out, you got a lot of kids in the neighborhood. They ride their bikes, they walk with their parents. Where's the safety there? If you're gonna have big trucks coming in and out. And I just, this is what I had to say, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and again, please sign in, and once you're all signed in, state your name for the record.
Okay. Nancy Dye. I live at 26 Merritt Avenue. I'm next door to the 2 big houses that they built. I could throw a tennis ball into the window. I'm 5 feet away, not even 4 feet away.
Nancy,
Yes,
this isn't Merritt.
This is not-
Merritt.
This is
not Merritt.
Luciani.
Oh,
This is
Luciani.
Luciani.
Oh, dear. I will sit right back down.
Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Rosalie Rowland, 102 Luciani Road.
And Rosalie,
Just a
can you,
couple
I'm
quick-
sorry, can you sign in?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And I'll,
Is that counting my 3 minutes?
no, it is not yet. I wait until you sign in and introduce yourself, and then I wait a little bit more, and then I turn it on.
Thank you. Okay, ready? If Shiki Luciani could have built, he would have built that. He had years later, and he still didn't go back to this site because he knew it was very dangerous. I'd like to know who the partners on this Luciani properties and who is financing this project. The cul-de-sac, which I've talked to people in the town hall, cannot be changed. It has to be kept exactly how it is. It's a new application, so therefore, I don't know why we're using things like the geotech man from 2015. You should look at the videos. Mr. Lodell was in his 80s, retired. He never walked on the site, because I went with him, with Mr. Cofrancesco. He asked Mr. Cofrancesco to pick up the shale, and he admitted this right at the meeting. This gentleman seems to be telling you people that he doesn't have to get a new report or anything. You people are running this meeting. Hammering would be terrible, terrible. Would you like to live next door to somebody hammering constantly? We've tried this. I talked to Warren Connors. Snow removal is a problem on Luciani, especially at the cul-de-sac, because they would always throw it on that site there, the snow. If you're going to build 2 houses, each house has roughly 2 cars and an incline for their driveway. I have a little incline, and my husband and I have trouble even making it if there's just a little snow on the driveway, okay? These 2 houses seem to have a steeper driveway. Where are they going to park their cars? They can't park it in the cul-de-sac because, God forbid, if there's an emergency on any one of those houses close to the cul-de-sac, how is any apparatus going to get to this emergency? So where are these people going to park their car? The whole thing is very, very dangerous. We've been there, and also he had said when he started cutting down trees, which was not necessary, and he cut the town trees down, you and the residents have water, and you should sue the town, because it's coming from Errol Road. So he gave us food for thought. We should sue, because if he didn't get his way, he said he was going to sue you. So you're opening yourself up to an awful lot by letting him build or trying to build, because it's not feasible. It's not, if you had millions of dollars, but he's watching. He doesn't want to hire a new geotech. He doesn't want to do this. He wants to save money. So what's going to happen when he runs into these bigger problems? And there's kids always playing in the cul-de-sac, riding their bikes with their parents and everything. You're going to disrupt this whole neighborhood. Now, I won't keep you any longer, but I wrote some things down, and I hope you read thoroughly, and also the backs. I've done some research, okay? I want to know who's financing this. Thank you.
So, Chris, can we take those, or,
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Thank you.
She's submitting it for the record.
thank you. Would anyone else like to provide public comment on the Luciani property application? We're happy to hear. Anyone else on Luciani? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. So we've now reached the time where we're going to close our public hearing. Is that correct? Or no?
Well, the applicant still has an option to give you an extension. If he decides that he wants to give that to you, you cannot request it or require it of him. Otherwise, you do have to close the hearing this evening. You do not have to make a decision this evening, so you can digest everything that you've heard. So it's up to you.
So I guess I'll ask.
You should ask
yeah.
if he's got anything.
I'll ask
further.
the applicant, is there any reason that you would be interested in holding open the public hearing for an additional month?
I'm on each side. I think we all understand each other.
Okay. Then, with that, we need a motion to close our public hearing portion of the Luciani Properties application for the excavation removal, fill and grading to construct 2 single-family homes at 110 Luciani Street. So do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion to close the public hearing.
And moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Seeing none, so we've closed our public hearing. I'd like to thank the Chris for helping us manage this. I want to thank the applicant for your presentation throughout the process. I want to thank the commission for their being good listeners, good questions. I look forward to our deliberations on this matter. But finally, I do want to thank the public for your participation in this process, both tonight and over the course of the last couple of months. We will take all of your comments, both in the public oral sessions and your written comments and submissions into account as part of our deliberations. So thank you to the members of the public. Okay, Chris, should we move next to our new business before we do our work session?
Yes.
Thank you. So our first item of new business is our application for a 3-lot subdivision at 9 Manila Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of that application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 350 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant, the Santa Goddess.
Excuse me, if you're going to have a discussion, we need you to go outside the room so that we can hear the presentation that's being made. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you all. And I'll have you reset that. I think we're having a few people leave, so we'll take a 1-minute pause.
And if you can sign in, Donna.
Yeah, no, sure.
And Chris, which of our piles of stuff should we
It's
look
a shorter pile. There's two, it should have the application form, clipped to the map, and then there was a second map that was submitted later.
So
No, this is 9 Manila.
And, Mr. Chairman, for the record, as I had emailed you and Ms. Sullivan, I will be recusing myself from any questioning or deliberations with respect to this matter because of a conflict.
thank you.
So you need to get up and,
I would be happy to.
but thank you.
You'll come get me when it's time to come back?
I will come and
Okay.
get you, I promise.
Thank you, Andrew. Take
Don't
whatever
go
you
too
need.
far.
Yeah. All right. Now that you've signed in, let's start that again.
Attorney Dominic Thomas, Cohen and Thomas, 315 Main Street, Derby, Connecticut, representing the applicant in this matter for a 3-lot subdivision. I'm here with the applicants, by the way, are Anthony J. Santagata Jr. and Patricia Elizabeth Santagata, who currently reside at 9 Manila. This is a 3-lot subdivision. Subdivision is in accordance with your D-zone. I have the engineer, Fred D'Amico here, who will present and address any questions concerning the applicant. I just wanted the application. I also wanted to point out that when you're doing a subdivision, obviously any subdivision, you should consider the issues of open space. This is obviously a very small parcel of property. In compliant, the zone is only 4,000 square feet, but I do want to point out that this 3-lot subdivision is directly across South Bradley Avenue from a public park. So there is public space in the area, obviously ball fields and soccer fields. The properties, as you will see, 2 of them will have access off of Manila. The existing property will have access off Manila, but will have a driveway off of South Bradley for parking in the rear. So we've accommodated 4 spaces for, they will be duplexes or 2 families in some fashion. The existing house there is a 2-family, so we've provided the sufficient amount of parking. And again, I remain here to answer any questions, but with that, I think it's better that you hear from the engineer as to the plan, and we can respond then to any questions.
Thank you. And if your engineer can sign in, introduce himself for the record.
Right.
Thank you.
Signing over there. Okay, I move over.
Yeah, sure.
For the record, my name is Fred D'Amico. I'm the engineer for the project. Basically, as Attorney Thomas stated, it's a 3-lot subdivision. There's one existing dwelling on the center lot. It was an old subdivision that it was actually purchased as 3 parcels. But what we did basically is revise one of the lot lines because just to make the lots a little more manageable as far as, I think one of the lots had only 45-foot frontage and the other 2 had 50. So what we did is we revised one of the lot lines by the 5 feet to ensure that we had enough room to construct 2 new dwellings. Basically, again, we meet all the regulations. There is no, the property, if you look at the topo, The property is basically flat. It is served by sanitary sewers. The sewers are out in the front in Manila. It's easy access to the sanitary lines, so we have no problem with, we don't need septic systems or anything like that. Also has public water in the street, so it will meet all the regulations as far as that goes. It's basically simple. We do have detention galleys proposed on each lot to ensure that the increase and runoff for the new impervious area, that is mitigated so that there will be no increase. And basically, it's a simple 3-lot subdivision. I'd be glad to answer any other questions.
Would you call those detention galleys? What were they?
Yes, detention galleys are, they're in the front along Manila Avenue.
And perhaps, I haven't heard that term either before. Explain what a detention galley does.
The detention galleys are, they're basically concrete structures that the runoff from the roof will go into the galleys so that they basically seep into the ground, and the overflow would, if it's over a 100-year storm, the overflow would just go out onto the surface. But basically, the intent is to let the water gradually seep into the ground, and so that you don't have all the runoff from the roof going out into the street all at once. It basically controls the surface water.
Does the property that does exist right now have those, or is this something?
No, the property does not exist. These are proposed for the 2 new dwellings.
Is that a new, relatively new thing in this kind of construction, or is it something that's been around?
No, it's usually required in all new construction.
For some time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are many subdivisions, I mean, first of all, there haven't been many subdivisions applied for, but in many projects, whether they're commercial that I'm involved in or high-density residential, underground galleys are required, and groundwater recharge is the effort to try to do it, involved in it.
And just so I'm clear, are these gonna, is there a gutter system on the roof and a roof leader that then goes into
Yes,
this?
the downspouts from the roof will be directed to the galleys so that all the roof water will go into the galleys and then be controlled.
Including from the back of the.
Yes.
All of it will then move to that. On this detention, is it the shaded gray?
Yes, yes, sir.
thing on this map?
Yeah, the area, they're actually, they'll be under the parking area in the front. There's, I believe there's, I think 6 galleys in each detention area.
I know my commission members are looking through your plans. As they're looking, do you have any questions for the applicant's attorney or their engineer? I just want to clarify, as you're thinking, so all 3 of the houses, the existing dwelling is a 2-family house?
Yes.
Correct.
And the 2 new houses would also be 2-family houses?
Yes.
And the existing dwelling is staying there, right?
Yes,
It's
the
not
existing
being
dwelling
changed.
is going to remain. There's no plan to change that at all.
Okay.
And they all meet the setback standards, even with the existing house. The only difference is the access to the parking for the middle one is off of South Bradley.
Oh, it's from the back
Yes.
of the property. Gotcha.
There is a current driveway that, paved area that goes from Manila all the way to South Bradley. Currently.
Is that shown on any of these or no?
Yes, if you look at the site development plan, it shows the driveway that's going out to South Bradley is actually an existing driveway.
A portion of the driveway off of Manila will be taken up because that will be on the next lot. On what is proposed dwelling, the address we were given from your assessor, that will be 7 Manila Avenue.
And just on the parking side of things, I'm looking at now the detention calculation. Are those parking spaces the things in the circles with the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yes, the parking spaces are delineated, and they're numbered. There's one, you can see there's 4 spaces for each dwelling, or for each lot.
And just so I'm clear in how I'm reading this, the 2 new construction, they will have a drive-in parking, which looks like the 1 and 3 spaces will be in the structure.
Yes, sir.
And then
Yeah.
2 and 4 are in the driveway, just
Yes, sir.
front of the
One will be a garage under, so one will be in the garage, and then there, one out in front.
But the existing 9 Manila Avenue has no garage, and therefore it has the 4 parking spaces in back.
Right, there's no
Correct.
existing garage on that building, but there is room for the 4 spaces in the back.
Coming off of South Bradley.
Yes, sir.
For that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you say the 7 and the 9, 7 and the 11, excuse me, those are gonna be the new, those are gonna be, did you say what those are gonna be? Are they gonna be single family or?
They will be, we were just asked to contact the assessor, and the assessor gave those 2 lots those numbers. They're both gonna be 2-family.
2-family, right,
Uh,
okay.
Most likely duplex. I think similar in design to the newer homes that are being built behind Merritt or along Merritt, where you have the tandem parking lot, just like this. Whether or not the assessor gives them 7A, 7B, or, that's really, numbering is not in our hands.
Other questions from commission members before Chris, we're still a little out of practice in, although now this is our second subdivision.
So this is a subdivision. It does not require a public hearing. You may schedule a public hearing on anything, so it's your choice.
And I do note our last one that came through, we did a notice to the nearby neighbors.
That notice has already gone out.
Correct, no, but no public hearing on
There.
that one.
No, I mean, that's your choice. I mean, historically, the commission always held public hearings on subdivisions and re-subdivisions, but it is not required by statute to be held on subdivision.
And this is not a re-subdivision, even though it was at one
No.
point in multiple parcels, but now,
The original multiple parcels were done in the 1890s,
thank you.
so kind of antedated zone. And the subdivision regs from 1953, so 53 is when we go back to. And we look at a division of land from 53.
And this is actually a consolidation of the 1890 parcels.
So when the people bought it, they bought 6 parcels,
Right.
threw it into one, and now they're breaking it apart.
The lots in 1890 the parcels were 25 feet,
Gotcha.
20 or 25, I forget what. I think it was
25 by 100.
Yeah, 25 by 100 back then.
No, no,
I
no,
think 20.
I'm sorry, that's,
20 by 100.
20
Whoa,
by,
whoa.
20 by,
whoa. In this section, it's residential D, so it's 20 by 100.
sorry, 20,
In
and
section C, which is on the other side of Litchfield Turnpike, it's 50 by 100. So these are 4,000 square foot lots, and on the other side of Litchfield Turnpike, it's 5,000 square foot lots.
Other questions from commission members?
So, Don, you did not submit a written request for a waiver of open space. Can you do that, if that's what you're requesting?
I will do that.
And then is this something, do we decide on the public hearing now, or do we do that in the work session?
Whenever you want. I mean, you've got a presentation, he's done questions. If you have any questions, you can ask him. And then in your work session, you can decide if you want to do a public hearing or not.
Okay.
Or make a decision. Or think about it until next month.
No, we'll make a decision tonight. Do you guys want to talk about it now, or do you want to save it to the work session on whether we should have a public hearing on this?
We can talk about it now. I just want to be 100% clear. So each of these new 2 dwellings that are proposed, 7 and 11, is going to have a total of 4 parking spots. Right, that's what I'm clear on. And
Total.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And then on Manila, in front, is there temporary parking for visitors that typically occurs on Manila? I mean,
I don't think there, either on Merritt or Manila, is there, there's people parking the streets, but most of the places down there don't have substantial amounts of off-street, whatever you want to call it, visitor parking. It's not, it's not very common in those kind of, whether they're your D zone or other towns that have R5 zones with 5,000 square foot lots and things like that. The lots are usually too dense and on roads that normally don't have off-street parking. I'm sorry, visitor parking, on-street parking.
understood. That was my question.
There are.
Chadi, I think you need to move your mic down. Sorry.
There are other properties in this area that'll be similar, that are similar to what you guys are proposing here?
Yes, sir.
4,000 square foot lots with
Yeah,
2.
most of the lots, all the adjoining lots the adjacent lots are basically 40 by 100 lots.
Two-family residents.
Not all of them are two-family, but there are some two-families
some.
also.
So that's number lot 11 is?
Lot 11, I can't remember if that was a two-family or not, but I know there's one being constructed right now, approximately 2 lots away. That's a two-family.
Okay.
And a 4,000 square foot lot?
Yes.
And that was approved last?
No, this is only in front of us because it is a request for a subdivision.
No, the one you said that's being built.
Yeah,
That did not come
That wasn't a
before.
subdivision, so it did not have to come before you.
Okay.
So other than the subdivision, this is compliant with all our zoning regulations?
Two-family houses are an accepted use. The lot size is the accepted lot size.
Setbacks are okay?
So the only thing that it's here for is subdivision.
Understood, thank you.
okay,
Are we allowed to ask if it's like an affordable housing type setup?
you can go ahead and ask.
Is this gonna be an affordable housing type arrangement?
No, it's not going to be dedicated affordable housing. Housing like this is normally considered, I don't want to use the term naturally affordable. It increases the housing stock. It is in an area that hopefully the rents would be reasonable, but it's not going to be 8-30G deed restricted.
Because the town is, from what I understand, is looking to fulfill that type of requirement, right?
The-
But I would say it has
I
some
have-
diversity in the town.
I have
of
a
available.
personal knowledge of that,
Yes.
having chaired the
Yes, I understand.
housing subcommittee and conveyed the chairmanship to someone on this committee. So, yes, I understand. But we also talked about diverse housing. And the same thing is by increasing diversity, this is frankly our type of housing that you're seeing a lot of other towns go into now, because smaller seems to be better and more. It's not, obviously, one of the problems is the increase in rents and the increase in values has to do with many factors, one of which is the overabundance of demand and the underabundance of supply.
And Attorney Thomas, how big are the units going to be in the,
Excuse me?
how big are the units going to be in the two?
I
Do you have that? Yeah.
don't know if there's, if the property owner has decided on the size. In my discussions with him, the conversation was similar to what is being constructed off of off of Merritt. There's, I know, 2 houses that were built on Merritt on what must have been combined lots. I'm familiar with them only because they abut my son's property. So they were built, and they're similar type design to that, similar type of size to that.
Any other questions?
I have no questions.
Let's save our decision on whether to have a public hearing until the work session, because I know we have our other application that's about to come right in front of us, and I believe it's also in the same neighborhood, so
Okay, sure.
these may be wrapped up in a sort of similar position.
That one I would strongly suggest that you hold a public hearing on.
Yeah, no, I'm sensing that, so it may make sense just to have public hearings on both, but I don't want to predetermine that for our commission members. But I thank the applicant and your engineer for the presentation. Do we need to do anything other than,
No, we just need to bring Andy back in.
oh, that's right, yes.
I could get him if you want.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
We'll take a 1-minute pause while we're waiting to get Andy back. Does anyone need any other bio break or other thing? Yeah. Sure.
And we still got one more engineer in the room.
So this is our next
That's your next one.
one.
I don't want you to blow away. I want you to have lots of weight when you leave.
Yes, 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue is next.
Oh. Silly.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I'm leaving again.
Okay. You should have read the book, Andy.
Yeah, I should have looked at the agenda.
Sorry.
I definitely did.
All right. We'll come back and get you. All right, I'll bring us back into our session. Thank you all for your patience. Our next item in front of us is new business regarding the application for a 15-lot subdivision at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. And who is here to speak for the application? Can you sign in, state your name for the record?
Okay, for the
And-
record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor, licensed to practice in the state of Connecticut, principal officer, 190 Fairwood Road in the town of Bethany. I'm here representing the owners of property at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. The proposed is to construct 12 new dwellings on approximately 3.59 acres of real estate on the south side of Merritt Avenue, east of the West River. If you know where the gas station is, you next right, you go up Merritt Avenue. There's already a cul-de-sac being cut in right now. There's 2 houses under construction on one of lots 12 and 11 as part of the previous subdivision. So that's why we're constructing, the proposal is to construct 12 new houses, not 14. 2 are already permitted and under construction. The property has already been submitted to the Inland Wetlands Commission. We have a positive referral. We've sent it to the Regional Water Authority. The site will be serviced by water and sewer. We sent it to the Greater New Haven Regional Water Authority, or Water Pollution Control Authority. We have a preliminary approval for a sewer tie-in. That's included as part of the application package. The proposal is to construct, because this is Zone D, 4,000 square foot minimum, the proposal is to construct 14 parcels that will range in size from about 5,700 square feet to about 16,000 square feet. Most of the lots are oversized by at least 2. In other words, if it's a 4,000 square foot zone, I think all but 3 lots are 7,500 or better. and some of them are close to 10 and 12,000. Included as part of the application package is the approval from Inland Wetlands Commission. Included as part of the application package is a traffic study. Included as part of the application package is the sewer study. So all those have been included. So this is a straightforward re-subdivision. It meets all of your requirements for a subdivision of this parcel. It complies with your plan of conservation and development. And that's basically it. Now, this relatively short presentation, I didn't bring any backup with me, only because the decision was up to you people whether or not it had to go to public hearing. It does have to go to COG, so, you know, we still haven't gotten there, so there were ways from getting their responses back. So how you handle this is up to you.
Thank you, John Paul. Just, Christine, I see what we have in front of us right now. I don't think we have, you haven't given us the traffic study and
There were 3 copies that were submitted. I didn't give them to you because there were 3 copies. Typically, when you have that, you refer it to a traffic consultant to review. Your choice, I can give you copies of it.
yeah, no, I think that would make
I
sense.
mean, it will be scanned and go up on the website, but
Didn't I send you a PDF?
you may have, yeah, but they want paper copies, don't worry.
Oh, but on the website, if you want a PDF, I'll send you the PDFs. Let me know tomorrow.
Thank you for that presentation. We're obviously just looking and flipping through it right
Yep.
now. So do folks on the commission have questions at this time? I guess my first one, if I can, just if you could point out which one I should be sort of starting with or looking at, and
I'm not sure I follow you.
So I'm looking at your first, I guess, C1.
You're looking at C3, it shows the, or C2. C3.
Which one?
C3 shows the lot layout, it's the zoning chart, 450 feet of road, the new road, and all the zoning information and the pertinent information about where the lots are and such.
And perhaps if you, and it might even be on your sort of schematic, your color one as well. Can you help me explain why some lots are closer to the sort of 4,000 and some go all the way up
Only,
to?
well, part of the reason is because the town, let me back up a second. There's a discussion with the Conservation Commission on open space. We propose to give the Conservation Commission a fee simple strip along the West River, which will provide trail connectivity between New Haven and Merritt Avenue. I mean, it's got no other place to go. You know, we'll be more than happy to give you more than that. My client is more than happy to get rid of everything but 4,000 square feet. Some people like larger lots. That's in keeping with the neighborhood. Not all the lots on Merritt Avenue are exactly 4,000. They all go up because of the way it was originally developed and bisected. It's just the way they lay out. You know, like the lots 13 and 14. You know, there's no logical reason other than the trail easement and the reduction of lots, obviously, to turn over open space. There's nothing significant about this parcel. It's trapped between Merritt Avenue and the Merritt Parkway. It's not a wildlife corridor. So there's no really reason to make the lots minimum size and try to get rid of the rest of the open space by donating it to the town or something. But, you know, we're open to suggestions. But a lot of people sometimes like large lots. I mean, it gives them something more to do.
Do you envision that the lots would be sold off individually? Is there a
Right
single,
now,
a
he's
single
intending-
developer that's
Right
coming
now,
in
the
or
developer's
open to
intending to own
anything?
them.
Or?
And right now, the developer, right now, the developer is intending to own them.
Understood. Okay.
He's not selling them.
Oh, so these are rentals?
These will be rental units.
Okay.
That's why I said this will conform to the town plan of conservation and development.
Understood. Okay. And is one developer, all the properties, the whole
Right,
plan?
yes, he's
rental
already done
units?
two.
Okay.
He's done two up at 22 and 24 Merritt Avenue.
Okay.
And he's doing these two here He's done 2 here, he's doing these 2 here.
Okay.
That's 13 and 11, or 12 and 11?
Yeah, 12 and 11 were part of a previous application under the Connecticut General Statutes.
What's on 11 and 12 right now?
There's 2 foundations, the houses are under construction.
For houses, okay.
That's correct. These are all duplex style houses. They're about, I want to say 1,400 square feet of floor. There are 2 parking spaces per unit, 1 inside in the garage, 1 in front, and you can put a 3rd car in front if you had to.
1,400 square feet approximately, you said?
Approximately 1,400 square feet, 2 floors.
And is that the plan for all the lots? Is that-
Yeah, they're all the same.
Okay.
It's the same floor plan. If you went there now and looked at the 2 houses under construction, it's the same house he's gonna build on all of them.
Gotcha. And this G Rose Drive that's been built?
That's been cut in, it's been cut in to lots 11 and 12, but the proposal is for a 450-foot long cul-de-sac. It meets town road specifications. We've provided detention. Like I said, it's been reviewed by the Wetlands Commission because it's adjacent to the West River. It's been signed off by the Wetlands Commission. We have a valid permit. Can you excuse me for just 1 second, please?
Sure. I know it's a challenge moving these big pieces of paper with my apologies
Then
to
you
our
gotta
microphone.
pull it back and forth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the commission?
I'm just curious, how long does this project, is it estimated to build and rent out and, you know, just
12 to 18 months.
12 days?
He's done 4 houses. He instructed the first 2 and they're gone. These 2 are under construction right now, but they require a public sewer tie-in. So as part of the, which was included, by the way, as part of the application package, the requirements for the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority. So we have to make a number of things in accordance with the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control design details. So they're not gonna have that ready to go for a little while. But it's all gonna have a brand new sewer that ties into the main in Merritt Avenue.
Understood.
There's plenty of capacity.
Shadi, if you could move your bike back down, sorry.
So these are, you said are gonna be rentals? So they're not gonna be,
Correct.
they're not gonna be deeded as affordable properties?
This is not done under an 830G, no. This is not part of an 830G.
I have no further questions at this point, other, you know, discuss it when we're ready to, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions. Thank
Yes.
you.
G Rose Drive, sorry, did I get? This G Rose Drive, talk to me about street parking on G Rose Drive on the cul-de-sac.
It's not proposed, we're providing off-street parking, but if you had, you've got room that if you had to, you could.
Right, okay. Like at both sides along, like
Yeah.
opposite, say, 2 and 11 or 3 and 11, like, could you park a car in front of 3
You can park cars in front of all of them.
and still have room for
Yeah.
access?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not ideal, but
Yeah,
it's no different than Merritt Avenue.
right.
The 2 that you refer to as gone, are they built? And
I'm sorry.
the units that you refer to as
There's-
gone,
The developer has developed 2 units at 22 and 24 Merritt Avenue. Those have been rented out to my knowledge.
Okay, they're rented
up,
out.
They have certificates of occupancy, and they've been rented out. The 2 here on lots 12 and 11, I really have to put my glasses on lots 12 and 11 are under construction. What we're waiting for now is sewer tie-in and water tie-in.
For just those 2,
Just those 2.
Yeah.
But we have to bring the main in. It doesn't make sense to bring the main in just for those 2. So they'll bring in the main and the water for the entire 450 feet of road. So we have to provide, the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority requires certain things to be done in accordance with bringing that main in. They want to know where the tides are, the laterals are. They want to make sure that all the details are in conformance with their details. So there's, like I said, I included the review from Ricardo Caballos, the Regional Water Authority, in the form of an email. And he has a whole bunch of conditions that have to be met in order to tie the sewer in. So that's what we're working on now.
Do you have a sense of what the rents are?
No clue. Do you?
2,700.
Huh?
2,000.
2,700?
Apiece, yes,
For what?
one unit.
And how many bedrooms?
So I was told by the town clerk,
I'm sorry, for how many bedrooms?
for a unit.
Yeah,
Hey.
I'm- just folks in the audience, we need to have quiet in the back.
That's why I'm here, I get to yell at everybody, I'm sorry.
I have the nicer version.
Yes, you are. So you have to have good cop, bad cop, and I'm the bad one.
Other questions?
I wouldn't have called it that way, but.
Well, just saying,
I'm sorry, how many bedrooms did you say?
3. And the ones on Merritt, they have 3. I believe in these, they'll have 2.
Yeah, I'd have to dig out the plans.
No, they had 3 in the ones on Merritt. And the
That's what I
ones-
thought.
And these are downsized, quote, to 2.
And that's, the 2 bedrooms are approximately $2,700 a month?
The existing ones on Merritt are 27, according to what I was told by the town clerk, yes.
Other questions for the applicant at this stage?
So in your file, you've got the copy of the permit that was issued, I think, by Wetlands. And if not, I'll make sure you get it.
I did include it as part of the
Okay.
application package.
So,
We do have a July 29th, 2022 inland wetlands.
so a lot of their review was the drainage for the site, and that's where you'll see the storm drainage system that's at the entrance to the road. And part of the rental portion or idea of it was that that was gonna be a better control for how that was maintained.
Yes.
Because otherwise there would have to be a homeowners association created.
And there's a traffic study.
We received a traffic study, yep,
And a sewer
Copies.
study.
and a sewer study, so I can.
And are those the types of things that our town engineer would,
Traffic study normally engaged,
an addition,
on
a
outside.
separate, yeah.
similar to what we did with Toll Brothers. So if that's your decision, I'll see who I can get to do that. And this does, because it's adjacent to the city of New Haven, it does have to go to the Regional Council of Governments. Their regular meeting is the second Thursday of each month, so your meeting in December, okay, so they're meeting this week, so they won't get it this week, they won't get it until December, which is after your meeting in December. So realistically, we're not gonna see comments back from the Regional Council of Governments until January.
We can talk about this in the work session, but if we did have a public hearing, we could continue it or no?
I would just wait until January, because you're gonna wanna have that comment in there. If you're gonna engage a traffic consultant to go over the report,
That'll
you
take
wanna,
time, yeah. Yeah.
have that
They're out there a
done.
little bit. You're not gonna get him in a hurry.
So, I would just recommend that you wait until January to start it, just because then that way you've got more information in front of you, the public has more information in front of them. And I do know, I think I've put all these plans up on the website, but I will double check what's up there. But they're there, and then the public can also come in the office and take a look-see at them in paper form, because it's hard to look at plans on a small screen.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? I'm seeing none, so I think this is something we'll talk about in our work session, likely planning for a public hearing, and we should talk about whether we should do a public hearing on both. But thank you to the applicant. and-
So we're looking for probably January.
That's, yeah, call me tomorrow, I'll let you know.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Anything else in our sort of new business before we move to the work session?
Nope.
Great.
When you get to the work session, we also have Alan Shepherd here for 356, that I keep throwing in there. So you have that one to act on this evening if you so choose.
And that's in our work session.
That's in your work session.
Great.
Excuse me, Chris, somebody left a cell phone.
Oh,
That's too bad.
hopefully I can get a hold of her.
Okay. So, apologies, I'm trying to find. So we can move to our work session. Should we take things back in order with the? Oh, yeah, we do
He
need it.
can't participate in this, so
So should we just get this one out of the
why
way?
don't you get this one out of the way and then we can,
Fine. So we're now in our work session to discuss the proposed subdivision at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue. And I believe the narrow question before us is this one that we should schedule a public hearing for, even though not required by our statute. I think the size and scale of this might be one, and the need for us to walk through traffic studies, sewer studies, et cetera, probably rises to the level of requiring a public hearing. But I want to hear folks' reactions or other views in that regard.
I support that point of view.
I agree.
Okay, so Chris, dates? You'd suggest that because
I
of
would
the
just do a
COG?
regular meeting in January, yeah,
Okay,
which will be on a Tuesday because the town hall is closed on Monday because New Year's is on Sunday.
so I think scheduling the public hearing for that
For January 3rd. Yep.
January 3rd, so first week of January.
So it's a Tuesday, not a Monday. So you get to,
I'm traveling January 3rd. I have to
you,
join the public booth.
Yep.
so at the public hearing, you can, in advance of that, review the plans, and you are welcome to submit written
Yeah,
comment.
I'm traveling. I have long distance travel. I cannot come in.
Yep.
beginning first.
Before then, you will have 2 months to look at the plans and provide written comment.
Where I can get those information.
It will be in the notice, and my name is Christine Sullivan, and I am the land use analyst, and my email's on the website, and you can email it directly to me. It cannot go directly to them, and then I will give it to them, and it will be part of the public record. So the public hearing is for receipt of written record as well as oral record. So if you're not here, that's okay, we're still gonna hear your voice because you can give us written comments. And on the website, on the town website, are all these plans. You can also come into the office and look at the plans, so whatever works easier for you. Okay?
Is there going to be a public hearing for both of these?
We haven't gotten to the other one yet. We're just dealing with the one that our member is to be recused. So we're definitely scheduling a public hearing on.
So you should have a motion to do that.
So I ask for a motion for a public hearing.
Second. Motion, yes.
Chadi, you're the motion.
I'm the second.
Second, any discussion on scheduling a public hearing for the application for a subdivision at 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue? Any discussions? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? So a public hearing for the subdivision for 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue.
So everyone is welcome to either come into the office and look at the plans, or if you go to the town website, under the Town Plan and Zoning Commission page, all of the plans are there. as well as any of the documents that are submitted, so the traffic study and all that. So they're all there, but if you want to see a paper copy, by all means, come into the office.
Or could we give our public, give our, give our fellow citizens a few days as a choice, so we can, majority of us can come and join.
The public,
Instead of you, a single person, decide which days. Give us a couple of choice, so we can have we will be able to attend.
You can't, no, we're not.
So just for the Luciani tonight this week?
Yeah.
that hearing was this morning, earlier.
Yeah, we can't speak.
So,
you can,
this one,
Chris, yeah.
when we have a public hearing, it specifically invites you to come and comment. So you have two ways to do it. You can provide written comment, or you can speak, or do both. Because it's,
I will be public. Did you schedule?
Yep.
I hope there's a bigger, notice in the bulletin, so that Upper Woodbridge also comes down, because this really affects the whole town. And the notice was like this big for this public hearing.
I absolutely agree. For the last
It's
sets
so,
that
it's
you got, we never
a huge,
knew.
development, I think that the whole town should be included on this.
Most of us here, we never knew last two, in the 4 house, 8 family, then how do they build up, how do they approve, we never knew. So all of us here, we still have more than this number of people haven't attended.
So,
This project gonna affect all locations.
and we do, the way the process worked, they present their application at this meeting.
No, we
We've,
get it.
we've now agreed to set a
But the
public
notice
hearing.
was so very tiny, most of Upper Woodbridge, or most of anybody in the town, didn't even know about it.
so the notice is a notice that we have to do in accordance with state statute. We have to do it in the New Haven Register because that's what the statutes say.
Okay.
We post it on the town website and it's listed in the agenda.
I know, it's
And,
just,
you know,
maybe some flyers or something, for us. I mean,
We-
it's huge development.
you're welcome to do flyers.
May I
I
ask a
will
question?
pass out flyers to every house in Woodbridge.
But
There
may I
you
ask a
go.
question, is it possible that you can send mail to all neighborhood who live on the street so they will get mail?
Under our regulations, notice will get sent to the abutting property owners who physically touches the property. If you are on the opposite side of Merritt Avenue, you are not gonna get a notice. If you physically abut it, you will get a notice.
Okay, thank you very much. I just asked.
Yep, that's the way it
And,
works.
May I say some suggestion about study? You say you're gonna study traffic in this area?
They're still discussing it. So you can give, what they may do is have me engage a traffic consultant who's neutral to review the report that was submitted.
Because the traffic light on Merritt Avenue to Litchfield Turnpike on the rush hours is absolutely horrible because Litchfield Turnpike is always blocked. It's very hard.
Yeah, we appreciate all this. These are all the types of things that will come in both through the traffic study, they will come up at the public hearing. So our challenge is tonight that we're not here to receive that information. That's just the way our rules work.
On the rush hours,
Right.
So these are exactly the type of things that you should submit in both written and oral comment, but the schedule is such that that'll be in January 3rd.
So when they make a decision, they make a decision based on everything that's in the hearing. So what we've heard tonight isn't part of the hearing, so you need to present that in the course of the public hearing, which is why it's encouraged that you submit something in writing too, because sometimes when you get up here, you're a little bit flustered and you may not think of everything you want to say. So by all means, if you're more comfortable doing it in writing, do it in writing. Do it both ways.
I also like to tell you untold story. So these, even your traffic study will not review this story. So what happened is one day, I'm an essential worker. From very beginning of pandemic to now, I never take one day off, okay? And one day in the morning, those guys contractor, the builder's contractor, have a big truck, came from the Litchfield into the Merritt, and blocked the whole street. Then I asked the driver, can you tweak a little bit so I can go out? The guy stopped there for 40 minutes, almost. Then I lose my patience. I have timeline to go to the work. Then I stopped and walked towards him. Then he was so upset, so angry. So then, okay, I said, okay, I still need to find a way to go to work. I back to my car. What happened? This guy came out of his driver's seat, the truck driver's seat, go back to his truck, take some very, dangerous things. So then I called policeman, but I didn't report this. I just reported Woodbridge policeman said, okay, this blocked the traffic for our resident. And then like he said, during rush hours, we now even not talk about rush hour, just one truck can block everything.
And again, these are the types of things that we want you to submit as part of the public comment. We can't, we are not in a public hearing right now. Public hearings require all the rules of notice. We appreciate those comments, but they need to be formally in writing to us. And we need to keep moving onto our other topics tonight. So thank you all.
Hey, I know it's off the record, but I took off work to come here, and I'm probably going to be able to come to the next one, just so you have an idea. So any lot that's extra that he was talking about, so I'm at 18 Merritt Avenue, Jesse Rose, he knows me very well. He built that property line under 4 foot to my property, and I have the pins that say it. So either way, he changed the property line. I'm figuring out how to fight that, but anyways, he didn't give out any extra space. Every lot is 4,000 square feet. If he said there's one that's 12,000 or 8,000, it's because it butts up to like a wetland where they can't build. Everything that they can build on, they're building on. We just went through wetlands here. They got approved. So whatever extra land that abuts a lot that is larger than 4,000 square feet is because it's unusable. And the open space, the corridor along the river, that you guys ever been to New Haven? And you get on the highway, the hotels and all the crack whores and drug addicts in that whole area. It is what it is. They could come right into our neighborhood. Now the woods is gone now, and there's all houses. So when you get on the highway next time, look to the left. You can come right on the other side, walk right in from Pond Lily into our neighborhood, and that's what they're trying. We don't want an open space, something. They're bringing up all that will be right into our neighborhood. Now you have to come in across the bridge, Solis Police at the gas station. You got to come into our neighborhood, from our street. You have to come by Woodbridge Police.
So
now they can duck right in from Pond Lily, New Haven, and they're in our neighborhood.
And again, I appreciate that folks, and I'm sorry for the confusion that, I feel.
It's gotta be a public hearing tonight.
It's just very frustrating.
Yeah. No, and we're hearing all this. This is unfortunately not a public hearing. It is, we will accept all of those comments, written, oral. So again, sorry for those who came out expecting that tonight, but we hope to see you back again in early January.
Not December.
January.
January 3rd, second Tuesday, or the first Tuesday of the month.
6:30?
6:30 again.
Here?
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
The houses are for rent for 3,100. The ones in that house.
31.
And they got hidden bedrooms in there.
3 bedrooms, Ryan.
So, Chris, do we need I do believe we should both have our town engineer review the site plan, or is that appropriate here, or no?
Well, he's already kind of reviewed it in terms of the storm drainage.
Through inland wetlands? Yeah, okay.
But I mean.
But the traffic study.
But the traffic study definitely needs.
What about the sewer study? I don't know what that.
I don't know that that's anything that we would normally review.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just making sure that it's sized right and that it has the capacity to have these extra houses go into it.
So I think focusing on the traffic study.
I think what I would strongly encourage everyone to do is to go down and take a drive through the neighborhood and just familiarize yourself with the area, because you're gonna hear a lot of these kinds of comments. Historically, I've had a lot of people talk about parking and the issues with parking and the issues with traffic. So, I would strongly encourage that you drive down there, not do it necessarily as a site inspection, but, on your way home, take a drive.
Okay, anything else we need to do for that one?
No, so if you want me to engage a traffic consultant, I will do so. I can try to get the one that we had for toll. We had another name that had a conflict with toll, so I've got a couple names now that we can use. And again, all that funding comes through the application fee. There will be a supplemental application fee that will be given to the applicant.
And the applicant pays for that, right? Yeah, I would definitely engage, because that's a very high traffic area, and it's a heavier density request, and it's right next to 15, and it's very, very high traffic, so
Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful to see it.
Anything else to do on 10 and 14?
Not at this stage of the game.
Okay.
So,
Are we
I'll do my bit, ship it off to the Council of Governments, ship it off to a consulting engineer, and, if you can, take a drive down.
Right. So should we go back to 9 Manila?
Yeah,
That's what I would do.
We can bring back Andrew.
We've got Alan here, it's up to you, unless you wanna just decide if you're holding a hearing or not.
I think we just want to decide if we're holding a hearing on 9 Manila. This one, to me, is less, but actually I want to hear folks' reaction to holding a 9 Manila hearing.
My opinion is if we're doing it for merit, I say we do it for Manila. Very similar setup. That's just my take. I mean, it's a smaller section, but if you're not going to do it for one, why do it for the other?
Well, respectfully, the Manila one, we're talking about adding two family units, or I think that's what they said. Whereas this is, a much larger parcel of land. I think if there's a reason to do it, it's because that is your only conduit, Merritt Avenue, going out to Litchfield. And anything you add to it impacts the traffic that comes in and out of there. But that being said, other single-family developments, as we've just heard, have gone in and changed the nature of the neighborhood, by some degree, and impacted the traffic, and those haven't had hearings. It's only because this is a subdivision. I don't know. I'm hard pressed to say that I think we need a hearing for this Manila one. I'm sort of on the fence on that.
I feel the same way, and I think there's a assumption that the way the lots are made, that you would put a house on it eventually. That there was a sense that those
Two houses.
The two
Right.
houses, yeah, on either
Right.
side.
And these are now
on either side.
two families.
I know, and it was originally in the 1800s, right?
That could have been 6 houses.
Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. So
It's pretty much to get out of there, you either have to go back up South Bradley, that whole area, right? And to get out, in and out, or you have to go directly out on Merritt. Those are your two options. I'm hearing that's obviously.
this is important because this is precedent setting, I think. Because as these divisions come in, and as a group we decide what to do, it's going to start to set a precedent whether or not we do these. So that's why I think I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, you're weighing the matter, because it starts to get precedent setting. How many units?
But the fact is, if 9 Manila had come in front of us without the 10 and 14 Merritt Avenue, then we wouldn't be, right? We probably wouldn't be holding a hearing about it, a public hearing about it.
Andy can come back in for this.
Oh, yeah.
Time's up, Buster.
So Rob, are we allowed to ask questions about the direction of the town?
Oh, that's his.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Chadi?
Are we allowed to ask questions about the town and the affordable housing plans and what's going on here?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that, because our stance is to just try to eliminate as many barriers as possible to developing housing, and public hearing is a particular barrier. And for a small development like this, I mean, I would support not having a public hearing. Only if it really warrants a public hearing. I mean, you're trying to eliminate as many barriers as possible.
So I'm interested in that because in the absence of the other larger development, I would tend to be on the side of this is a, subdivision that meets all of our standard rules. It's how we went forward with the 356 without, 356 Freeman without a public hearing. That said, I worry that the neighborhood may not see that distinction. They may view this as all this development happening all at once in their neighborhood, and there may be some connection in their minds to the two, even though they are completely separate, which just happens to be the timing of this, et cetera, that is coincidental.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we want is for, folks to show up at our next meeting late at night on a, and now that the time change has happened and it's dark and standing in the back bellowing at us and physically intimidating us not to make, I'd hate for that to happen again, because it certainly happened before.
We've been through that.
I mean,
Yeah.
the problem is that, like they've talked about these other two houses that are being built that haven't been occupied yet. And then so there's basically 6 units that have gone in their neighborhood right now.
Mm-hmm.
All of them didn't require any kind of input from you because the one on Merritt was where there was a single house. They took it down, they broke it as a first split into 2 lots. Bingo, 2 houses. And the 2 that they're building right now there was the existing parcel, so they built it on that, and then there was the first split of that piece, so that was the second one. So from their perspective, I think you're right. They're looking at, currently, they've seen 6 new houses and all that traffic and all those cars, and they're parking out in the street. And so that's what they're looking at. That's their life.
It doesn't sound pleasant.
And so for them, I think Rob is right. That's what they're looking at.
And what's the future holding? Is there a lot of property down there that could see more of this? Do we know?
There are lots that have single-family houses on them that could be converted to 2. And when you convert it to 2, you have more cars, more parking, more traffic. And as they like to say, they're always getting dumped on.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones with public sewer and public water.
I think we owe it to the townspeople down there to discuss it and allow them to
Let's hear what they
voice
have
it.
to say.
Is that a consensus? We can have a vote and we can decide whether, let's hold so there's a motion for holding a public hearing for the application at 9 Manila Avenue for a 3-lot subdivision. Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll motion that.
Second.
Motion moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Kathy, you brought up a good point and something I want to understand more. So the task of the TPZ is to make sure we uphold the town's requirements when somebody wants to buy, build on property, right? Is it our job to, like Kathy said, break down that barrier so people can do it more easily, regardless of the impact to the town, even if it meets our requirements? Or is our jurisdiction also to uphold what the town wants to be going forward, outside of the requirements of this big packet here, the zoning regulations? To everybody, not just you, Kathy.
Yeah.
I'm not singling out Kathy. I'm trying to understand where I draw the line to make a decision.
Well, I'm hoping the direction of the town is to create an environment where housing development could happen more readily and easily, and that's certainly, the lens I'm going to take going forward, because I do believe that we need more housing opportunities in Woodbridge, and any housing development helps with the housing shortage, whether or not it's affordable or not affordable. Higher density housing will help with the housing shortage in Woodbridge and in the region. So anytime, there is unless it's very compelling, I don't feel that it's compelling right now to have a hearing on this particular subdivision. I think it is probably a little more compelling on the merit, given the history of what's going on there. But for this particular development, I don't find it compelling, and I am always going to feel that I'm going to try to eliminate any barriers there are for developing housing to the extent possible. And hopefully the town aligns itself with this. I can't guarantee it in all instances, but that's certainly my take.
I agree. I'm in favor of supporting the development of housing, as long as it's the right kind of housing for the people that are coming. Right? We want to. If I take the approach, we want to help.
You need to talk louder because they're.
If we want to help the community members that are coming in build wealth, rental properties may not be the way to do that. Right now, this Merritt Ave and Milan, I'm assuming they're renting those as well. It's just, they're rental properties. They're not, they'll bring people in, we'll get the taxes from the property, but they're not helping what the goal of that, the 10% affordable housing plan is, to help our residents and neighbors, build themselves up. This is just
I might push back on that. There is a need for rental housing in Woodbridge.
Okay.
Particularly for people that work in Woodbridge and would like to be part of the community, and they don't have the option to be a homeowner, yeah.
$3,100 to $2,700 a month, that's,
Yeah.
you can buy a house for that. A significant
I would
house.
also add that we made a significant change into housing, town planning and zoning, a year or so ago, when we allowed two-family houses to go into that area. So I think there's something to be said for monitoring that, listening to people that live there and see how that development happens. I think it's good if the zoning is aware of that, which is what we're doing.
So,
Yeah, that
Jeff,
was allowed.
Correction?
Yeah, that-
No,
That
that
was always
housing has always allowed two-family.
Two-family everywhere?
in that zone.
That's
Oh.
never been
Oh,
a
excuse me.
change.
Yeah, and the challenge I think we have here is that our only reason this one is in front of us is because of the subdivision. Otherwise, if it were just a regular two-family in that zone, we wouldn't see it, which,
And what's troubling about this is that ultimately, whatever we do, we cannot physically force Litchfield Turnpike to be a different setup, right? The state has talked about modifying 15 in the entrance to 15 and making Pond Lily one way and all these other modifications so that someone who lives up here can get in their car, drive down and get on 15 in a matter of however many minutes, and my commute will be shorter, and I won't have to sit at all the lights near Katz's in this little area. But that's a state decision based on state funding, and the folks who are living down there now, dealing with increased traffic, like those folks who were saying on the way out, right? Like they told us. I mean, we're not gonna be able to physically do anything about that, but the fact is that there's real estate pressure, obviously, which is why these folks are even here. So, I'm not opposed to holding a hearing, but we are gonna hear an earful, and I'm, I agree with Kathy that, I don't want to erect any barriers that aren't there, but I also agree with the chairman's point, which is that allowing folks to articulate their concerns, Hopefully that'll rise to the level of the state will act and make some changes to alleviate the traffic pressure there.
And it's not just the traffic, it's also parking.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
right.
part of it is looking at it, because quite frankly, one of the things that I asked or suggested when they came in, well, first off, I said, are you gonna have any affordable housing? I was told no. But then I said, well, could you have like a community parking space there so that when you have a gathering at somebody's house, that you're not using up the road, so the road, narrows down
Right.
and whatnot. So it's just something that possibly is a consideration that's in there. I mean, clearly there are people that have been set upon in many different ways, unfortunately, because of where they are. And yet they have a wonderful, viable community down there. They really, truly are a melting pot. And it's a thriving little community.
so we've had a motion and a second and a discussion. Let's have a vote on whether we should have a public hearing just for or specifically for the 9 Manila Avenue proposal. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'll abstain.
This one's, he should abstain because there are some connections. Any opposed? And one opposed. So thank you all, and thank you for that discussion as well.
So you want to do this hearing for your January or your December meeting, because it does not require any notice or, or review by anybody, and then that way you don't end up with 2 hearings in one night?
I think it'd be wise.
I think it'd be smart, I would support that.
Okay.
Okay.
But we should still make Andy come and stand in the hall. No? Should make Andy come and just stand in the hall.
Oh, we're gonna make Andy come and stand on the hall? We'll give him a chair next time.
Christine, can I ask about the comments that the folks made in terms of communication of an agenda and letting the rest of the town know when something's occurring in this committee?
I am one staff person. I cannot send, my opinion is that I cannot send notice to everyone who may be interested on a specific application, because then every application that comes in, they have the right to expect that they're gonna receive that same thing. So what we do is we put it on our agenda. If it's a public hearing, it gets published in accordance with state statute, and we send a notice to the abutting property owners. If it's of that big a concern, they'll let their neighbors know. But I mean, there's a limit to what I can do as a single person.
I apologize. I want to go actually back to the schedule and the timing, because I'm worried, though convenient for us, to the extent that we were worried about these 2 projects being viewed as a whole, to then split them in terms of their timing of when their public hearing is, and to the extent that the traffic study would be informed, and I looked at this earlier, I apologize, would inform us on the overall impacts in that zone, even though it's not required for the smaller parcel. I don't know, I just sort of.
But if we're having if we have the hearing on 9 Manila in December, will we make a decision potentially that night after that hearing, or we could make it?
You can.
We could, yeah. And you're saying that we may want.
I don't know, I just sort of, to the extent the community may conflate the 2 or think they're related, which was part of the reason why I thought it was good to have a hearing. Now having them separate, I don't know if that's gonna add to confusion. I don't, this is not a fully formed thought, and it's both late and
And you
an hour.
still got 356 women sitting in it.
You got your extra hour on Saturday.
Yeah.
So now we're
Exactly.
gonna use it.
If I made the purchase, now you gotta, you fell back.
Mr. Chairman, I understand your point on that, but I think, look, I think it's all of the development that's going on is maybe making people a little bit nervous. I would be in favor of keeping the 9 Manila hearing in December. I get your point, but I would still have the hearing then.
Other reactions? I don't mean to throw a wrench into things. I'm happy to have it in December. I just wanted to articulate that timing.
Shadi, what do you think?
I honestly don't care either way if it happens separate or together.
What about you, Kathy?
Well, if you're gonna have it, I would say have it sooner than later. So December.
Okay. December is fine. You can, well.
Can you say anything on this, or you just you're choosing?
I can't say anything on prospectively, I can review the film on the 9 Manila, because I did not actually have a conflict with that. I will remain forever silent with respect to the other.
Okay. So December is fine for 9 Manila, I think.
Okay. Next. Now we're on to 350s.
So-
Oh, no.
Yeah.
110 Luciani.
Should we do 110 Luciani? Okay.
Well, or do you, I don't know. It's your meeting, you do what you want to do.
Yeah. So 110 Luce, let's, I guess, do, if we could get 356 out of the way faster,
I think that's a simpler one.
yeah, I think so too. I apologize, I've now lost my agenda, so I apologize if it's not in the right order, but I'll steal this one. So, work session on 356 Rimmon Road. This was our application for a 3-lot subdivision for open space. Chris, we did receive,
Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff.
we received two letters from the public on 356 Rimmon.
Yeah.
I had one from, we had one letter from the public from a John Hutchinson.
Right.
And then-
One from the public, you've got the 2 comments from the two separate councils of governments, the Valley Council and the South Central Regional Council of Governments, and you also have a letter from QVHD, and you have a permit from Wetlands, and
We have a memo from Tim Austin.
we have a memo from what?
Tim Austin.
And a memo from Tim Austin, who's from the Conservation Commission.
Okay. If that is the record, before that is all the commission members seeing all those pieces and parts.
And I'm not seeing anybody else here, so there's nobody here, and notice was sent to all of the abutting property owners.
So, thank you, Chris, for that. We also have the applicant here. Thank you for your patience tonight. Chris, procedurally, what do we need? Should we do a motion to approve and have our discussion, and then within that motion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have any further questions for Alan, then you've received everything I think you need to receive to be able to act.
Do we have any further questions for Alan, the applicant?
No, I mean, I do have not concern, but I do have a clarification on the memo from Tim Austin.
So let's put that, but that's not for our applicant. That's for us
No.
to discuss.
Can the applicant respond to that letter though? I'm just reading it on the fly and it suggests a couple of things, such as a 20-foot pedestrian easement, on the property. Can I ask the applicant a question?
Yeah.
Have you read the Austin letter? And if so,
Yes.
do you have a response to it?
Yes, I do.
I invite you to respond.
Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, it's Alan Shepard, professional engineer, partner in the firm of Noakowski, Levine John Kane, 415 Howe Avenue, Shelton, Connecticut. So as we got that out of the way, they asked for a pedestrian easement on the back of the lot number 1, even though it's wetlands, to connect to the town property. So we said, fine, usually we'll give them a 20-foot easement, and with the right that they could put a plank walkway if they want to. If they ever get around to it, it's there. So we agreed to it, I already put it on the maps. It's fine.
I'm pleased to hear that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant, since we have you now officially hearing from them?
That you're on the record.
No, I mean, I just have a question on this whole process for the open space. I'm not sure if it's, I mean, I could just, you know.
Ask.
Sure, okay. So, just to understand, I know that in the subdivision, it's, you know, we could waive, you know, the provision for open space, but the applicant voluntarily offers open space. At what point do we know whether or not the town, in fact, wants this open space? I understand the Conservation Committee wants this open space, but is that actually vetted with the town as to whether or not they want to receive this?
I'll
Okay.
talk regarding this one, but it's pretty generally approved. Most of the applications you'll find don't care where the open space going to. So whatever town group or forest association wants to get it, it'll go somewhere, right? In the event that nobody wants the little orphan pieces, they end up in some sort of homeowners association, which I'm not a big fan of, because they just sit there for years. But this is a very nice connector piece, so this is a very valuable piece. And even though on the back lot number 1, the corridor is important to the Conservation Committee, that's why we agreed. And even if they don't use it, having that connecting corridor here is huge, you know, so, I think this is open space, it's somewhat of what we'll want,
Okay.
you know. So we'll deed it to whoever they want, whoever the town wants.
So in this particular case, you've got the town owning the property to the, to the west, I guess, and
Yeah.
Land Trust owns it to the north.
Yeah,
So one of the two hypothetically should want to accept it.
and we wouldn't care.
Right. I guess, in the spirit of not creating barriers to potential housing, the fact that it says it would allow passage from land owned by the town of Woodbridge. So we know that the town of Woodbridge is okay with this allowing passage part of
Well,
this?
the Conservation Committee is a representative of the town, so they act in their favor.
Okay. I mean, I just, and I'm
Yeah,
just.
they're their authorized body to do such things, so.
I mean, it just so happens that we had was this a piece of property we talked about the other night? The
Right,
town.
but if you developed it even with housing, it lets people have an ability to hike.
Okay, I just, I didn't want this to somehow get stretched that there's a conservation easement on this property because we're.
It's not on the town property, it's
Okay.
only on this piece. And so if something were to happen on the town-owned piece, they would have, whoever, if it was residential, would have the opportunity, if there was a pedestrian trail created, to hike here. So it allows passive recreation,
And
should
the-
there ever be anything that happens.
And the applicant is gonna retain lot number 1, so he's the property owner and is gonna retain it, he's fine with it.
All right, I just didn't want to see any diminished use of a potential piece of property that could be used for housing.
And we talked, and just so the board would know, that's some of the things I talked about with the applicant, that where will be. He's a resident of Woodbridge, he's fine with it, so we put it on. He agreed.
There's no encumbrance to the use of the town-owned property by having this easement on this private property. And if anything, it's a potential enhancement because it would provide a passive recreational trail.
Sure, and it would be good for John Hutchinson if he wanted to.
Other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you to the applicant. Do I hear a motion to approve the 356 Road subdivision?
I'll make that motion to approve the subdivision application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? I would note that we have received one comment from John Hutchinson. In the record, we have received the information from our health district regarding the use of septic systems on the site. The Regional Planning Commission has weighed in and didn't see any intermunicipal impacts. And we had already, as discussed earlier, the Conservation Commission is amenable, or they had a memo, and we have since confirmed that the applicant is amenable to the 20-foot pedestrian easement with the potential for a connecting trail into the future. So with those things before us in the record, any further comments on this application? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions?
Thank you.
Go forth. Thank you.
Here we go.
Okay.
I've been coming to this town for 40 years. I actually reviewed the wetland. My firm that I worked for was one that did the wetland consultant, so we're a town consultant. So it's just amazing sometimes to think, go by where did all that time go to? I have no idea. I was a young man when I used to drive down there.
Thank you very much.
Did you sign in?
Yes. I did.
And thanks for your patience tonight. So then our last item, before we get to the other items still on our agenda, which we should talk about, is our 110 Luciani Road. Now, Chris, I know you mentioned that this doesn't require us to have a decision tonight. We could, can you run us through again as I'm
So you closed the
fuzzy?
hearing tonight, and you have until your next regular meeting to act. So it depends on how you feel. Are you comfortable talking about this now? Do you think you need a little bit of time to digest everything that came before you? It gives you time to formulate an opinion and a motion. On the other hand, if you're comfortable acting on it this evening, you can also do that.
All right, so let's begin our discussion there on people's comfort level in making a decision tonight in light of what we've heard at the public hearing, the recently received updated plans and other items. Do folks want to continue forth on towards a decision tonight, or would you prefer having until next meeting to discuss this? I'm open for either direction.
Can we still ask questions tonight?
Of amongst ourselves, we can't ask any more questions of the applicants. That
No.
part is done.
And
Yeah.
are they allowed to be here for?
It's a public meeting. They're here listening to us deliberate.
Send the rules, okay.
And that's actually, Chadi, that's a very good point. Our deliberations only can happen in this room. If we postpone it for a month, we can't talk to one another outside of this room. We just will come back and have this open discussion at that future time. We can have a discussion and get people's reactions initially right now. We can go around the table there. Or we can say, it's late, I'm tired, and we need to digest this and push it off to the next meeting. That's up to anyone.
I would propose that, my thought on this is that based on what Mr. Peretti said, that there needs to be some kind of an addition to the application which covers explicitly the issue regarding the, some kind of a letter or something regarding the runoff, erosion control, sediment runoff. I'm not satisfied sitting here based on what we heard, and based on the two of their discussion, that the application as written has that. And as much as I respectfully agree with, or should I say, respectfully recognize the work of environmental engineers and the engineering that goes on those sites, as the chairman, as you pointed out, we are not engineers, and so it's our job to make sure that the papers are at least in order, and I don't think that the papers are quite yet in order. I think we need a letter articulating that, even if it's something that's in the matter of normal course of practice in business. The way that they operate, the way they do their business is to move those things around on the property. Based on what we heard from our professional engineer, that is not yet in front of us.
Other reaction, and I guess that then raises a procedural question for Chris. That could be a condition of.
You have an option. You can either deny it because you don't have that information, or because it's a special exception, you can make conditions on a permit. So that would be a condition of a permit, and that's the kind of thing where you might say submission of a narrative describing that would be reviewed and approved by your own consulting engineer, so that you know that, you're not the consulting engineer, that you've got that independent person looking at it.
And to piggyback off of Yoni, this has been what has been consistently frustrating to me about this application, is that we had our engineering consultant provide the list of things to be reviewed and things that were important, and it didn't seem like the applicant met the things that were being requested of them at many stages along the way. To me, that's only one of them. I'm frustrated by receiving a 7-year-old one-line geotechnical report when that was part of the original request from our consulting engineer. I'm frustrated by receiving a 6-year-old review of trees, which trees change in 6 years, and to me that has frustrated me throughout this application. So it's what we're left with is how to manage what's been put in front of us being less than what we and/or our consultant has been asking for, and that frustrates me having to deal with it. So Yes, so the two paths are to deny for not having a sufficient presentation as requested multiple times from us, and or to have that be incorporated in a special exception set of requirements, which would then also include what seemed to be our engineers' workaround tonight, having just viewed these materials this evening, which I think is also unfair that we had to have that for our consultant on that timetable, where he came up with you could have those geotechnical reports and those evaluations of the trees after you do the work, but before you allow any building permit to go forward, in the spirit of let's make sure that the construction, grading, filling does not harm the intended building that is going there. To me, that misses the other concern that I might have, that construction, grading, and filling might harm not just the future house to be built there, but other parts of the neighborhood and elsewise, which to me is why I think our engineer wanted that initial evaluation of what it is that we're dealing with in this zone, which has not been provided to us. So if that's my sort of challenge with this one.
So I like how you're framing it, and I would say I think the applicant, Mr. Chairman, felt that it was more of a situation where he could come and just get us to approve the excavation, which is a relatively simple thing in a lot of areas, but this parcel of land lends itself to more in-depth application process to a zoning committee because of the questions being raised, that the parcel itself could have flooding in different areas, and it wasn't such a simple excavation. You have some rock structures behind it, and that could change as the excavation went on. So to further frame what you're saying, I'm agreeing with you, and I would agree, I have to think about it procedurally, but I would agree as submitted, I would not approve it.
Other reactions, thoughts?
No, I absolutely agree with your assessment, besides my quest to remove barriers to affordable housing, which this could be. But I just have major reservations. I really think the concerns should have been addressed regarding the trees and the geo testing should have been done when he requested for it to be done. And I know that our consultant did say, okay, well, maybe after excavation, but I really think it needs to be done prior to, because I did take a ride there. I don't know if anybody has seen the site, but this is like a huge rock ledge, and it's kind of scary looking at it, and I could imagine if a rock did come tumbling down during the process.
My concerns are the same. It's not so much the trees, but the rock structure, what happens when they start digging into it. I would say we could get another geotechnical assessment before they can move forward.
So our challenge procedure, and well, before I go there, Andrew or any other comments, reactions?
I would just say that it's always a struggle to juggle the rights of a property owner to develop his or her property in accordance with existing zoning regulations, and at the same time considering potential disturbance or annoyance to neighbors. It's a long time problem, not unique to this particular street.
But the only thing I would add to that is that this particular street, with its extreme sort of cliff face, presents beyond your typical construction noise, excavation, etc. This is in a zone where the prior person who wanted to try to do this was going to blast it. This is not blasting, but this is something that is a extreme heavy machinery in terms of its pneumatic sort of pounding to get this done. In that case, I am concerned about the excavation activity itself, and I don't feel like we've been presented with the things that were asked for to ensure us that this will be done in a way that it ensures public safety for the community and neighborhood broadly.
Somebody tried to develop this property before, so from what I understand, and why was that? Did he give up or was it rejected? Or both?
There was an original attempt to excavate it with machinery that wasn't up to the task, and so that stopped. Then there was an attempt to then come before this commission or requested you do blasting.
There was no blasting. People talked about blasting, but there wasn't any blasting. So there was an initial permit that was given. That permit wasn't started until almost before the permit was going to expire. So the applicant got a 3-month extension on the original permit, which can be allowed under your zoning regulations, and they still hadn't finished the work. And so then they made an application to do the work, modified how they were going to do the site, and then that plan that they had was not accepted by the then commission. It had nothing to do with blasting or the method, because blasting is not under the jurisdiction of this commission. It is solely a permit that is issued by the fire marshal. And as long as the conditions are met, the fire marshal issues a blasting permit. It had nothing to do with blasting. It had purely that the second application that was submitted changed from the initial application, and the commission denied it because that second application was not acceptable. That's it. They ran out of time with the first one.
I'm sorry, why was the second one not acceptable?
It would be very, you
Yeah,
have to look at the plans.
The commission decided
It was-
based on what was in front
it
of them
was-
at the time, which is different than what's in front of us right now.
What you
too.
have in front of you right now is different than, because that was solely for one house and this is for two.
So, if I understood you correctly, Christine, if they start with a large machine to start jackhammering this stuff away and then find that blasting would be better, they just have to go to the, who'd you say, the fire marshal?
There's an application process. They go to the fire marshal and they would get a blasting permit as long as all the parameters that the fire marshal has are met. And those parameters include setting up machinery around so that they can measure when it goes poof, because blasting isn't the big boom, it's a poof. I mean, you can hear it, you can feel it. We had it done over on Forest Glen, but even with all the devices that were set up around that site, there wasn't anything that was out of the realm of, that was gonna cause any cracking of basements and whatnot. So with blasting, there's a far-reaching evaluation of the area around it. Every house that's in the vicinity or a certain vicinity has to be reviewed, and so that they can't make a claim that, oh, now I got a crack where I didn't have a crack before, that kind of thing. So it is an option that's out there. It just requires, I don't want to say just requires a permit from the fire marshal, because it's, but the professionals that do it are pretty professional, whatever.
So that
That's what
gets,
you got.
right, that gets us back to where we are, whether we're prepared to make a decision tonight, and if so, that decision, what it would look like. And to me, there are steps to take that would present us with that complete set of information for us to make our decision. If an application came back, which they could, with that geotechnical analysis at this stage and/or an arborist report at this initial stage, we would have a different application in front of us. We would actually have a full application and record in front of us. Me personally, I would not vote in favor without that information. I don't know if a denial is with, it doesn't preclude the applicant from coming back with that material. It just requires another public hearing, et cetera. Correct?
Correct.
So the public hearing having been closed, it was closed,
Yes.
correct? Would the applicant be able to submit such a report at this point within
Only
this
if you make it a
application?
condition of the permit.
So we have to approve it and make it a condition.
You would approve subject to the submission of a narrative for the erosion control, subject to there being a geological
geotech.
report, geotech report, subject to there being a more current arborist report.
So those are our two procedural paths. We could approve with those conditions, and Chris, what happens if the report comes in and it's, a similar one-line report saying, yeah, everything's okay? Do we have the ability to say, no, that's not actually a geotechnical?
Then you may need to be more specific with what you want in that report.
Which to me is the risk with this applicant. They've demonstrated that they are doing the bare minimum in this case. I would rather personally just say, no, you start over. But I could be in the minority in that opinion.
It's a complicated application. I mean, I think the applicant can hear us. I think the applicant should go get a consultant, bring him in, do all this work, which he probably doesn't want to pay for, but then he'd really know what could get done, and he'd have more line of sight to the end of it, which suggests turning the application down. Now, for us, we just say no, but the applicant can go hire a law firm, understanding this is a more complicated parcel of land, can go an engineering firm, that type of a thing, and then solve all the problems up front. These are public comments. They know what we want. You've been saying what you want. Then they would know. So, anyway, that's a potential solution. So I'll motion to decline this particular application.
Although, Chris, we technically would just, a motion to approve, and then we vote on it, and it may be rejected.
Oh, and say no?
No, you can move to deny.
Oh, you can?
You have to say why, so that you're giving direction. You can't just
Okay.
say we deny it.
Just, we haven't done one of those before, so
Yeah,
apologies.
no, you can deny something, but
I need some lawyers to step in here and help me with frame this.
So,
I'm telling you
yeah.
I'm making suggestions. I need some help.
I'll make the motion then.
Thank you,
because-
sir.
Sure. So I have a motion to deny the application for 110, 114 Luciani Streets, application for a special exception permit for excavation and fill, because the applicant, despite the requests of our town engineer and the commission itself, did not provide.
Whoa, slow down, I'm writing.
Oh, sorry.
Did not provide, go ahead.
A geotechnical analysis and report regarding the existing conditions of the rock slope due to its potential hazards to public health and safety in the neighborhood, and not just the two parcels, or the proposed two parcels, and failed to provide a updated analysis
Wait a
of.
minute, slow down.
Sorry.
It's all right. Okay, go ahead.
And failed to provide an updated arborist report on the conditions of the trees on the site that have the potential to be disrupted by the excavation. And failed to provide a narrative description of the functioning of the sediment trap, again as requested by our consultant. That's a long motion. So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Jeff. Discussion.
It's a sensitive piece of land, and I don't think that, to put it simply, I don't think that the application reflects that. It was just not treated with the care that it needs. It's a particularly sensitive piece of land. So I'm gonna cast my vote in favor of denying it reluctantly, but I don't think I think that's what we have to do.
Any other discussion?
I feel similarly.
I'll put it to a vote. All in favor of denying the application, say aye. Aye? Any opposed, any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you all. Chris, it's 9:40.
So I guess you're not gonna do anything else, because I think you're kind of weak right now. Right?
Yeah, I think if we have time for our quick reports, let's, on the 200-page now Word document of, 187-page now Word document of our regulations, what should we be doing with that in advance?
For the record, I did print it out.
I did too, and I brought it.
I see a couple.
I brought it, and I demand that we go through this.
Right now.
There's been longer
Glenn
meetings. We
has
can do it.
basically said,
No, that's yours.
I have
For
given
you.
you this
Yeah.
document, it is a Word document, it is now your job to decide what you wish to do with this Word document. And he feels that at this point, you probably were not comfortable looking at any of the other things that he had suggested along the side. So his recommendation was, look at this document and do what you wish with it.
And doing what we wish, this is a newly formatted, though not substantively changed.
It will require a public hearing.
Oh, it will.
Yes, because there are changes to it. When Mary Ann Dubuque was explaining all this stuff, she was explaining the difference between a Scrivener's error, where if you spelled something wrong, you fix that. This is not that. So you need a public hearing on this.
What do you mean this is not that? I thought that was his task to fix all the problems that were with it.
He's fixed the problem, so he's changed text within this. And so it's a similar thing to what was done in 2019. You're adopting a cleaner text to your zoning regulations. And you don't have to specifically say section blah, 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 but you have to put everybody on notice that
Yeah,
there
all
are
right.
changes.
I understand there has to be a public hearing, but what I'm asking is, does this purport to be a finished product or substantially finished product that addresses all of the issues with which he was presented?
Yes, but you need to read it to make sure that when it references to table 5.6, that table 5.6.
But wasn't that his job to make sure that when it references to table 5.6, it relates back to wherever it's supposed to go to?
That's
Isn't that what
his
we hired him
charge
for?
was. That was his
No,
charge, to
this
just
is
make
your
the
reg,
document clean.
And this is what happened in 2019 when that didn't happen. So you can adopt it the way it is, but truthfully, I think it's your job to read it and make sure that everything matches.
That sort of analysis would take 6 months. If we're gonna table this for 6 months to go through and spend an hour a week, then we'll do that.
I think it's simply you reading it, and more often than not, I mean, some of the bigger things that we had issues with was you had a table that didn't exist, or a table that didn't describe what the table was supposed to be. So it's just double checking that stuff, because he's human. And while he's done this is also your responsibility as a commission.
Is the Word document you sent us, does it have the review, the revisions?
This is the document.
Yeah, no,
Just
there
not
is-
mark
There's not a
changes, right?
change,
Just not mark
it's not a
changes.
change,
It
because
does.
it wasn't that, you couldn't do that.
Can we
We
go
had a
Alan
vision.
back into service?
Huh?
Can we call Alan back into service? He was pretty good.
There could be some paragraph that got inserted almost by accident, and we just approve it, and then that would be part of our regulations.
Until someone trips over it when they're trying
And
to.
that was the problem that we had with the
In the
regs that
past.
are currently there.
Yeah.
So we don't have a track changes document.
No, you can't, because it doesn't lend itself to that, because what we had in 2019 was in need of repair.
So we do need a public hearing on.
Yes,
Um,
and we have to send it off to the Council of Governments, and you know you don't need to do this for January when you got that other big hearing.
Well, I can start to read it a page at a time and
Yeah.
give feedback to the group and see how it goes.
Just
Hey, just read it. I'll just read it.
Just read it.
Sure.
And read it and look at the tables and say, I mean, because this is where we ran into problems with parking, where it said this table was supposed to deal with something, and then
And it was on a
didn't do
different
that.
page, or it was a different graph, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, it's that kind of stuff. I mean, I think he's fixed all the other stuff, but it's that kind of stuff that you need to look for. And it's not gonna be the end of it. You're still gonna keep modifying this thing.
So do we need to schedule that public hearing now for February?
No, because I have to have a document that I can send to the Council of Governments.
So we need to get to the point where we have a document that we're.
So I would suggest that if, as much as you can, look at this thing and do what you can before December, and then if you need to, get it to January. But, you know, to do it right, we owe it to the town. We owe it to have a set of regs that works. We don't have that right now. I mean, I can't even post a single document on the town website, because what we got isn't a document that's in one piece that's big enough to put on there. So what he's given us is a Word document that down the pike, should you change things, we can readily change it. Because right now, all these sections are in sections.
Okay, so our homework assignment is, now that folks have copies of it, to spend the time reading, looking for those types of things that are out of place, that don't make sense, that are dead-end references, et cetera.
All right, can the chairman do something by email? Can he assign each person like 20 pages or 30 pages to read? And would that make sense, or should we just
I
read?
think you need to read the document.
Okay.
That's your job.
Okay.
Did you print that out for us, or is that something we need to print
I
out?
printed it out, I can print it out again. There are 187 pages, I can print it, no problem.
Oh, Jeff got a copy printed?
I printed it out.
Jeff printed it.
I printed it out.
Andy printed it. I printed one copy, but
And
I can print
I
copies for
printed it
everybody.
on each page, like so,
Yeah.
you know.
I'll probably just read it on the laptop.
I mean, it is a Word document, so that you can, you know, you can do track changes yourself and all that other good stuff, or make notes, whatever you wanna do. But
Do you mind printing a copy out?
I can print you a copy, no problem.
Okay, so it is, and despite Jeff's best efforts, we are all being assigned full.
Nice try, but no.
No, I'll read
This
it.
is where I play bad cop again.
No, that's fine.
Scrog report, Andrew? Anything?
You're meeting this week.
So there was a meeting on October 13th, at which there were proposed zoning amendments from the city of New Haven, town of Orange, the town of Hamden. Actually, the town of Hamden had to do with the adoption of an adult use cannabis provision that I believe they approved.
What town was that?
Hamden. And there was our very own Town of Woodbridge proposal for a 3-lot subdivision, and another text amendment to the zoning regulations of East Haven. All of those 6 things, or none of those 6 things presented a negative intermunicipal impact, nor were a threat to the environment of the Long Island Sound. And all were reported as such to the various towns. And that was my part. That's it.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
And he's got another meeting this week
I do have another meeting this week.
with a very busy agenda.
Kathy, Housing Committee report.
Sure. So just as a way of background, the Woodbridge Study Housing Opportunity Committee, we did finish and complete our report in time, and that was approved and adopted by the Board of Selectmen in May, and they submitted in June as required by the state. And I hope everybody had the chance to review this affordable housing plan, because it does kind of like, overlap in some of the work that we do here in the commission. And then subsequently, we were recharged to oversee the implementation of the affordable housing plan. We also shortened our name to Housing Committee, so that makes it easier. And our first task was to prioritize some of the strategies that were in the housing plan, and a couple of them I just wanted to talk about tonight because it affects the commission and the work. One was amending the POCD to align with the affordable housing plan. And then two, its idea of reviewing existing zoning to remove barriers to housing production. So with that, the Housing Committee is proposing two recommendations to P&Z. And that is one, to amend the plan of conservation development to incorporate the affordable housing plan for the town of Woodbridge that was adopted by the Board of Selectmen on May 25th, 2022. And then also to amend the zoning regs, the section 3.4 Opportunity Housing Part E, multifamily development, to include the Dev 1 zone. And the Dev 1 zone would allow mixed use housing. There is some interest in potentially like building apartments over commercial, and by expanding that, we'd be able to expand some housing opportunities.
So I think there were two things. There was, so GBA, you allow housing over commercial, but it was also to allow in Dev 1 the opportunity housing, which is different, because that can be standalone housing. So to give you a little bit of background real quick, somebody had read this plan, and in the plan there were identified tracts of land which potentially could be developed as affordable housing in some vintage. And so they contacted first the Board of the Selectmen, and then they finally contacted me, and they were interested in purchasing a piece that's down in Dev 1. And as I explained to them, because of the constraints that the commission had when you did the application that came before you, you could only modify that which had come before you, which only dealt with residential districts. So you didn't extend, even though you might have wanted to, the ability to have opportunity housing in Dev 1.
Dev 1 is what?
Dev 1 is on where Toll Brothers is. So it's the north and south sides of Bradley Road. So it includes several vacant pieces of property. It includes the large, what we call lender building, which is that tall brick building, which periodically hasn't been all occupied. So it would lend itself to potentially having apartments there or having a site developed for opportunity housing. So in this particular case, they wanted to do opportunity housing on a vacant parcel, and I said, the first thing you gotta do is amend the regs, because we don't allow it. Can't tell you that they wouldn't go along with it, but we have to amend the regs. Long story short, the owner of the property upped the price several times so that they didn't want to buy it and whatnot. But in the short run, it would have been helpful to have that reg in place. We've had the owners of 245 Amity Road. They've asked about potentially having apartments on the second floor of that particular building, which does have commercial on the first floor. So, I think there's two sections. One is the section where it would be the opportunity housing, and the second one would be to potentially expand the GBA, that apartments over commercial also into Dev 1.
How about Dev 2?
Dev 2 we've talked about before, and Dev 2 is on the other side of the West River, which floods. And we don't get them that well, we're getting them more often, but, in the last big storm that we had, they actually had to go in and rescue the animals from animal control with payloaders. So there's been discussion before about not necessarily increasing the population on that side of the river, because as we're getting more frequent storms and higher storm events, it's problematic because you've only got 2 ways to get from there and over. The bridges that are there were both rebuilt, but they don't allow, because of how close they are to Litchfield Turnpike, to be raised above the flood elevation, so they are actually at flood elevation, so that in flood events, they flood.
The bridges
The
flood.
bridges flood. So you could consider it again, but, you know, it's an interesting.
So procedurally, will the housing committee come before us with that proposal?
There's 2 ways you can look at it. They could come to you and say, this is what we would like you to do. They can always recommend to you, and while you're doing this other thing where you're amending this, you could say, oh, okay, we're just gonna include this as part of what we do under this hearing. And then it's there. And to me, that's the cleaner way to do it, is just to say, you know, if that's what you wanna do, to just incorporate it into that and get it done.
Okay.
But is there a motion at this point to accept the recommendations of the housing committee?
No, I mean, you need to, they're mindful of it, read these regs, decide that you wanna go to hearing with them, we'll incorporate it into that, and then we'll do it. If that's, you know, if you're amenable to those 2 ideas.
So for the minutes for this meeting, Chris, this is a little bit of make work, but for tonight's minutes, for this meeting that we're having tonight, can you include those 2 things in your minutes?
Yeah, I will
And
do
now,
that.
You see what I mean? You know,
No,
so
I
like-
understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
but
great, thanks, Chris.
I'll bring it in there.
Thank you.
But, you know, it's faster if you guys do it, if you're comfortable doing it. And it's gonna be the subject of a public hearing, so I mean, you're gonna hear people.
I would just, I don't disagree with that approach. I would just note that a public hearing with respect to the corrections that were made structurally to this is going to be far different than a public hearing that includes zoning changes that allow for mixed use. I remember well the last time we tried that. I was there.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
I mean, you did it through the permit that, the application that you had. And that application was different than what you approved. So the opportunity housing came about because you modified an application that came before you.
When you say
So-
opportunity housing, you're talking about the affordable housing that we're trying to.
It's not necessarily affordable housing, it's opportunity housing. It incorporates a percentage of affordable, but it also has market value. So it's opportunity housing. It's providing not just affordable, but other means of housing for the town, which is inclusive of affordable housing.
So I think for tonight, we appreciate receiving the report of the Housing Committee and its 2 recommendations that have now been transmitted to us for us to consider, probably put it on the agenda for our next meeting in our sort of discussion of how best to approach that proposal, whether as part of the general public hearing on our cleanup or separately.
Yeah. And I mean, what I can do is I can go into those sections and show you what it will look like. It's pretty simple, but, you can do that. And relative to the town plan of conservation and development, that also requires a public hearing. That also requires notice to the council of government, so, you know.
Do we otherwise have to amend the town plan of conservation and development periodically every time?
And I keep saying that, yeah. By 2025, that plan has to be updated.
So if we did it in 2023, that would satisfy the 2025 amendment requirement?
Yeah, but you need to read that whole document and decide what it is that you.
Oh, I guarantee you I'll read that whole
I
thing.
know you will, and you will, I know. What was I gonna tell you? Oh, mindful of that, and I know it's late and you wanna go home. We do have a budget that has to get submitted by the end of December, so you should also think about, thinking of the town plan, do you wanna put in funds to hire a consultant to assist you? So, our budget doesn't have to go in until the end of, December.
It was done that way last time, right? They hired a consultant to write it, draft
Yes.
it, and then
Yeah.
the commission members.
Is next fiscal year the right timeline for that?
You gotta start it, you don't wanna wait till 2025.
Understood.
Yeah, no, I would start it, because it's a fiscal year for 23, 24.
Which starts July 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
I would
yes.
suggest putting it in there and get going on it.
Okay. Anything else from our zoning enforcement officer?
Not that I'm gonna bore you with tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to just note that we received correspondence about upgrades to that Pease Road?
Yep.
AT&T telecom.
And these are upgrades that come through the siting council. They're nothing, they're just to have it out there that everybody knows that something's happening.
Okay.
It's not an additional pole, it's an existing pole.
I don't know if we got the minutes. I don't think I saw
No,
them.
you're not gonna deal with that tonight.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Moved. Second.
In favor.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. No
I can
opposed,
make out
abstentions.
whoever moved it. Yanni, you moved. Who seconded?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you to our team
Long
in
meeting.
the back. Appreciate all the help tonight.